Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow is underway on this Tuesday edition, rolling through the short week, Thanksgiving week. Happy Thanksgiving week to all of you here on the OutKick Network, which includes the YouTube channel, streaming live there. You can join Chad in the chats. Search out OutKick. Hope you subscribe. If you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Jam-packed show today. Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, he will join us, gives perspective on how many NFL players are we going to see on the field this weekend for Ohio State and Michigan. John McClain with us to break down the NFL in Week 12. Plenty of divisional matchups. Plus, Kelly in Vegas tells us how to place our bets on all of the great games this weekend. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. Excited for day 2 of our Thanksgiving week edition of the show.
Yes. You think Bill Belichick is excited about making a quarterback decision and potentially figuring out what he's going to do past his tenure in New England?
I think when you have the options at quarterback that Bill Belichick currently has, you're not very excited about making that decision.
Yes.
Some coaches out there may say, man, I've got a bunch of good quarterbacks here. This will be fun to make this decision. Not Bill Belichick.
No. I believe it was Clark Judge who said that the Patriots-Giants matchup for Week 12, said this a couple weeks ago, should be flexed. Should be flexed to Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. That's how bad this matchup will be in the potential quarterback matchup where they have not made a decision on who's going to start Sunday. If they have, they're not going to say it. Mac Jones is splitting reps with Bailey Zappe. For what it's worth, Mac Jones took the first reps of the first team split with Bailey Zappe after being benched prior to going into the bye week. And prior to going to the bye week, there was chatter that the Patriots needed to win that game if Belichick wanted to keep his gig. Well, he's still the head coach of the New England Patriots. Chad, I continue to buy into the fact that there's certainly enough pressure behind the gossip that something's there. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and there has been for quite some time between the relationship of what we've seen from Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. That's what this comes down to. It's not whether or not we're going to see wins down the stretch. It's about Robert Kraft's relationship with Bill Belichick and how much it's deteriorated with all that.
Let me ask you this question, Hutton. Just a scenario that could be out there. A scenario for you.
Yeah.
If the possible solution from Robert Kraft was, Bill, you've won a lot of championships for us. You're an all-time great coach. We value in this organization. But you have been bleep as a GM as of late, and this roster simply isn't good enough. So I'm going to go hire a hand-picked GM of my choosing that you will work under, and you can continue to coach this team, but I'm stripping you of general manager responsibilities. Does Bill Belichick say yes to that?
No.
Or is he gone?
He's gone. He doesn't say yes to that.
Because
and he shouldn't
that
say
is
yes
a scenario that I've heard floated out there, and I'm thinking, then that's firing him or trading him for someone else, because I just don't see Bill Belichick saying, yeah, you're right, let someone else pick the players.
It's amazing, though, and I understand why, the results are the results. They have failed Mac Jones. Mac Jones, you could say he's not good, but the situation that they've aligned with him has been awful. And that's on Belichick. But it is amazing and surprising how soon we forget any draft pick that made it in New England. Oh, of course, Belichick, they found him. Matthew Slater, for instance, a longtime special teams player for the Patriots. And he's one of the most popular players from the fans' perspective. That it was a Belichick guy, right? Why would Belichick, the GOAT, say, yeah, I'm going to work underneath someone now in regards to personnel? That if you're going to do that, you might as well just take his job and replace him. Because after the Hall of Fame career he's had, he shouldn't work underneath anyone. And he wouldn't have to if he wasn't in New England moving forward.
I would love to know the actual market for him with the rest of the league. And who has jobs open and who is going to be salivating over Bill Belichick at this stage of his career. What if someone's going to want him? I'm not claiming that they're not going to, but I don't think it's as easy as, it's a bidding war, because every team is going to line up to try to hire Bill Belichick and no one else if he's available.
Think about the coaches that are in the league, though. Like, if you're going to turn down Belichick, you've got your guy. If you don't, who are you hiring? You see what I'm saying? Like,
and you would have to
trade for him as well. That's the other holdup. It's no different than Vrabel in Tennessee.
I just think the appeal of trying to find the next Sean McVay or the next Kyle Shanahan or the young gun that's going to be with your Kevin O'Connell, the young gun that's going to be with your franchise for 15, 20. You want to find the next Bill Belichick, not Bill Belichick on his way out of coaching. Not Bill Belichick, who has been a failure since Tom Brady hasn't been his quarterback. I get it. Resume to resume, of course you're not going to find another resume like Bill Belichick's for a coach that you could bring in. I just don't think the list is long of teams that want Bill Belichick right now. I think there's one, and it takes one. I'm not claiming that he's not he's going to be out of work if he's out there. I just don't think there's going to be some bidding war, a bunch of teams lining up saying, I want this version of Bill Belichick to lead my franchise for the next 3 to 5 years. I think there's a lot of them saying, I'd rather find the next up-and-coming coordinator or pluck someone from the college ranks that's going to be here for a long time.
Yeah, and that could be fair to what I just don't think a lot of owners have a plan set, and they'll look at the results and the buzz and the PR grab, and they'll go. The two organizations that you can read and hear and all the ballied about, Washington and the Los Angeles Chargers are the two that you hear that would be very interested in Belichick. I mean, would I go hire him first? No. Am I trading for him? No. But you're right, it takes one. And those two owners, we don't know much about Harris in this regard. He's going through the rebuild and trust the process, quote unquote. But to get you on that path, that would be, to me, that makes sense. Bring him in, and then he's out, and whatever is set up down that path of trust the process, which is the same owner that did this for the Philadelphia 76ers, you get everyone behind you. Meanwhile, they need new leadership with the Chargers.
Bill Belichick in L.A. makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. There's just something about that pairing. Bill Belichick on the West Coast in Southern California.
I know.
I mean, Washington, I can see that right away. They got a stadium that the water doesn't even work in. They couldn't take showers after the game. That's Bill Belichick's type of place. Bill Belichick in SoFi Stadium coaching the L.A. Chargers, the second team by a mile in Los Angeles.
With the hoodie and the cutoff sleeves.
That gets nothing but visiting fans visiting their place.
What if Belichick, Chad,
it just makes no sense to me.
What if all of a sudden he does the Aaron Rodgers approach where he goes somewhere new and there's no more hoodie? There's the pullover, team apparel.
He's sitting courtside at basketball games.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like
he's going to Laker games now.
Looking very sharp on the sideline instead of
wears a tie.
Yeah.
What if he goes full suit, like Mike Nolan honoring his father Dick by wearing the full suit on the sideline? Maybe he tries to go with that trend. Isn't there just something just missing or off about thinking about Bill Belichick coaching the L.A. Chargers?
Yes.
I hate that. Washington, I hear that. I'm like, yeah, I can see that right now. I can see him in that hoodie, in those colors, in that market, on drab November Sundays in Landover, Maryland, on the sideline. Yes, sign me up for that. Bill Belichick, head coach of the L.A. Chargers, is very weird for me to even think about.
Chad, are they throwing a parade in Pittsburgh, the fans, Steelers fans? Matt Canada fired as the offensive coordinator. Signs were up across the country. Fire Canada. Even on College game day, you could find these signs. And it happened today. Mike Tomlin sending out a brief statement just saying, hey, these decisions don't come easy. We're moving on. Good luck with your future endeavors. Reports are Diana Rossini put out that Hugh Jackson was chatting with the Steelers about potentially jumping in the mix there. But they're going with a duo of two assistant coaches, Mike Sullivan and Eddie Faulkner, right now as they move forward. This is the Kenny Pickett move.
Yeah.
It is time to let it rip. It is time to throw the football further than 5 yards and get George Pickens involved.
Well, and is he going to be – now is Kenny Pickett going to be Tua when he got new offensive leadership?
That's a great question.
Or is he going to be Mac Jones when he got Bill O'Brien that didn't get any better and may have gotten worse? That's the big question now for Kenny Pickett moving forward. My buddy who's a big Steelers fan, I immediately texted him when I saw the news from Schefter that Canada was fired. And I said, when you wish upon a star, maybe your dreams will come true, because he has been dreaming for a while that Matt Canada would get fired.
Oh, it's a dream.
The immediate question was, is Josh McDaniels going to be the hire? He would be available, right, having been fired. if they wanted to bring him in, much like a Hugh Jackson.
Yes, but once
who's
you're
available,
fired, if you're still getting paid that bite, you can trade.
You can trade that out to go work.
Well, for the rest of the season, I believe that's how it works. Yeah, maybe there's like a late round pick. It's not much. It's not like what we're discussing with Vrabel or Belichick.
Well, and that's just a name to throw out there that people know. So I don't know that there's any connection there or anything with that. I'm just thinking.
Think about this.
Going the assistant coach. To me, when I saw that move, it wasn't, they've got someone in mind they're going to come to bring in to coach to flip the season around. That's Mike Tomlin saying, this team is not good. Najee Harris is firing off at the mouth about, are we going to sit here and say, well, we're fine in playoff positioning with our record, or acknowledge the fact that this offense is on fire and we got to do something about it? This is him saying we're going to do something about it while we have time and see if this can be the spark that'll get it going.
The only reason I bring up the fact that I don't think it could happen this year with Josh McDaniels, Frank Reich couldn't do that last year. He couldn't just jump into the mix and start calling plays for another team immediately after getting fired in Indy. By the way, you say when you wish upon a star. This is the first in-season coaching change for the Pittsburgh Steelers since 1941.
Wow.
That is consistency. It's also loyalty. But this does not happen. And that's why it took so long.
That's how you know it's bad.
Yes.
I don't hear that and think, man, Mike Tomlin, he's really changed his stripes on this, and he's going to be a completely different coach now. No. That is Mike Tomlin, because he said it was my decision alone. That's Mike Tomlin saying, it was so bad, guys. I had to do something this organization hasn't done in 70 years and make this move. 80 years. 82 years, if you're going back to 1941.
Yeah.
That's how bad it's been. It's been historically bad with this offense. And no one can blame them right now.
Chad, we have seen some bad teams in college football that will take the field in some rivalry matchups this weekend. And this is historically, going back to history, this is the topsy-turvy weekend where craziness can happen, will happen. It's just a matter of where based on the motivation factor.
It's always a week that we go into it with a couple toss-ups. You got Ohio State, Michigan, which most years is close to a toss-up in these games. But you get a lot of games where you feel like you already know the outcome going into it, but you also feel a lot of uncertainty about what exactly the motivation is for certain teams in this matchup. And it is rivalry weekend, but when you get to the end of the college football season now in 2023, it's also motivation weekend. Who's motivated to play a game for the school they're currently enrolled at, knowing that they may either be using a COVID year or a medical redshirt year, or going through a senior day only to decide to transfer somewhere else for their 5th or 6th year and then go through a senior day somewhere else where they go there? Who's motivated to play for a slightly better mid-level bowl that's already bowl eligible? Who's motivated to go and try to make their season by beating their rival at the end of a terrible season? These are all the questions that have to be answered. And here's what angers me about having this question. And I know this is a get off my lawn type take here. I don't think we were asking this question 15, 20 years ago when you got to the final week of a season in college football.
I agree.
I really don't. I don't remember constantly asking, I wonder what this team's motivation is now that they've lost a game or two, or now that they've looked bad the last few weeks, or now that they've got their bowl eligible, they're going to want to come out and play, or are they mad at the coach? And give me a break. These guys practice and play and work out and work so many months. I mean, think about a college football season. You're on from late August, first week of September through November. Then once your season ends, it's either bowl season or final exams followed by workouts. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Workout, workout, workout. Spring practice, fall camp. You get 12 Saturdays. 12. 365 days in a year. You play football on 12 Saturdays. I do not want to hear about motivation. But here is the problem with college football right now. And I think this is an issue, and I'm a huge college football fan. Motivation will be a factor with certain teams. We'll see it. We'll see it. And that kills me. That really does. Because you're granted 12 games. That's it. 12 games each fall. And you practice and work out, and you are made to go places year-round for those 12 games. But some teams aren't going to be motivated. And I hate that about the sport and the fact that we're even asking the question. But Hutton, we're going to see that this week. Arkansas is a good example. Are they more motivated now that their coach Sam Pittman has his job? UCLA a week ago, Chip Kelly, they come out and win. I just look across the country and I see a bunch of scenarios where we have to ask the question, what is the motivation for this team or this coaching staff? And I'm thinking, why are we even asking that? There's 12 of these. That's it. Everyone should be motivated for every game.
You know what else? The other thing that bothers me is a lot of times this is brought on by the program, by the administration. You know, the report about Chip Kelly before you play, you know what I mean? Like, instead of just coming out and saying, no, that's incorrect, he's our coach, they're not saying that, which is validating the report. And meanwhile, even if you are motivated to go out and play, what are you really doing other than just, you know, you're having fun, but what are you really doing whenever you're down 14 points in the second quarter? You know?
Yeah.
And if your own university is already going coaching search firm mentality, that's also BS.
We're going to see more and more of this. We'll talk more about it. But programs making the decision to cut ties with a coach based on the fact that transfer portal and signing day being early and everything has to start immediately. You almost need to have your coach the Sunday after on Thanksgiving weekend, ready to go, ready to come in and start working.
There's a new number one team, or the number one team solidifies that spot last night, the Eagles. We discuss next.
The rest of the world doesn't know this. I have a day drinking day that I have at the owners meeting, and it's Mike Tomlin and I throw it, and it's only for head coaches and GMs. No other media is allowed to come, and the media over time has given us respect. Like, this is Glazer's thing, let's not go there. And it's usually Tomlin and I and upwards of 30 other guys. It's crazy. But what I also do is I always tell Tomlin and whoever the older coaches are, tell these young cats what's about to come across your desk, because they have no idea. Like, the craziest stories in the world, and you're not prepared for it. Because when you're in that position, you really find out how messed up everybody is. Like, it's not just your players, it's your coaches, it's your scouts, it's your GMs, it's the person in the cafeteria, it's everything. And then it's their family and the issues families are calling. And oh my God. And listen, these cats didn't go to school for this. They didn't go to school to be a psychiatrist. Right? They went in the coaching to coach. Right. But when you're a head coach or a GM, that's part of the job. The other part is really, it all lands on your shoulders. So I make Tomlin and all the other guys tell the craziest stories that have come across their desk in the early days to prepare the new guys.
Well, and also probably to help normalize everybody else, right? Because we all probably live our lives thinking, oh my God, no one could understand, or no one life is as crazy as mine or as messed up as mine. And then you hear someone else's story, you're like, wait a second, you have me beat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple, I can't tell them on this, that are there are we go to them. We usually start these fun days off with these couple stories that there's no way I'll ever repeat, but they are like, Charlie, if you said to me, hey, if I told you any of them, you'd say, come on, you made this up. There's no way this could be possible. And the craziest thing about the NFL is that anything's possible. You know, when we did Ballers, people are like, come on, that stuff doesn't happen in the NFL. I'm like, this is a G-rated version of what happens in the NFL. Are you kidding me?
Okay, you just took me to literally the best segue, because something I remember you saying, and I remember you saying it a few times, the NFL is truly the greatest reality show in the world.
Can't make it up.
And that is what you're talking about, is a testament to exactly why. I mean, there's all these stories that happen, and they're not scripted stories.
Yeah. Look at the Raiders this week. They fired their head coach and general manager at 10 o'clock at night and put in ex-Giant linebacker Antonio Pierce to run the team. Like, look at last year with the Colts. They put in Jeff Saturday. Like, you can't make it up, right? So it's just like, it's great because even for me, like I said, with these things, like, I think I've seen it all. There was something that happened this year. I said, man, we've seen it all. And then this happened. I don't remember I can't remember what it was.
If you think about it, just
okay. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. But we're like, man, we've seen everything. And then this thing popped up just when you thought you've seen everything. And you really like, that's the thing. And I've been around, by the way, this is my 30th year, right? Is that, I don't know. Yep. 31st year. It's my 31st year. My 20th year at Fox. I started covering the league for the New York Post in 95. So that would make it like, but I started earlier in 93. So that's 31 years. So 95, was it 29 years covering the league. Yeah. So I've seen it all. I've been around. I think I've seen it for the most part. The stuff that's been reported and stuff that hasn't been reported. And yet every year there are still things that surprise me.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Chad, Davey gave me the pitch last week about the college basketball evening, midweek. Tonight's the night again to flip on and watch the top teams in the country go head-to-head.
In Maui, in Honolulu, it's the Maui Invitational, but in Honolulu because of everything going on in Maui, you have got 2 versus 7 nationally, with number 2 Purdue takes on number 7 Tennessee, and you've got 1 versus 4, Kansas versus Marquette. That's pretty awesome.
That's great.
You have 4 of the top 8 teams in America going head-to-head in the same venue, the Stan Sheriff Center in Honolulu tonight. On the ESPN family of networks. That is a nice college basketball slate. I saw Kentucky win to overtime last night against St. Joseph's and pulled out a win, had a really close game. College basketball is getting going now. UConn and Texas played a good game yesterday. This is a good week for basketball.
How many years now have we seen the scheduling like this? Because that's why it's good, right? Like there's anticipation and excitement. Also, last year's tournament is carrying over.
Yeah, I think Thanksgiving week has always been a good college basketball week. Maui Invitational has always been good. There's always been good fields in Atlantis or other tournaments also this time of year. So that's nothing new. I think this year's is exceptional, though. It's been good in the past. There's some great games over Thanksgiving week this year, and it starts in Maui, where you've got that doubleheader tonight with those 4 teams playing. It's great. And what I love about these games is they're very low stakes. They're going to be played hard, and it's going to be an enormous win for someone. But when you're playing 40 games over the course of a season, it's not going to hurt you.
No.
Any of these teams tonight, if you lose in Hawaii to a top 8 team nationally that's going to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed in the tournament, it only helps your rating at the end of the year, right? So I think these are no-brainer tournament fields to enter. These are no-brainer games to play. I was looking at Tennessee's schedule, for instance, and their non-conference. They go from Maui to their next game in the States being in Chapel Hill against North Carolina.
Wow.
So they're 4-0 right now. I mean, they could very easily be 4-3, right? They could lose, then lose to number 1 or number 4 in the country tomorrow, and then lose at North Carolina. But it's not the end of the world because your schedule is so difficult in the early part that it doesn't kill you. I love when good programs and good teams schedule each other in the non-conference. It makes it more exciting.
We saw the NFL schedule makers schedule 2 good teams last night, 21-17 the final. A lot of discussion coming out of the game about Philly at 9-1. Rightfully so. That's a tough road game to go and leave with a W at all. And Philly did it coming off the bye against a head coach and a team that routinely wins after the week off. My biggest takeaway, though, is regarding Kansas City and the trends that we're seeing not getting better. What we saw against the Detroit Lions in week 1, Chad, with the drop passes by the wide receivers, that continues. They didn't address it all that much this offseason. They didn't address it at the trade deadline as heavy or as aggressive as you might expect it. What we don't know is what they were offering versus what was turned down. We don't know that, but they didn't make a move. It's going to come back to bite them. This is the third straight game that they've been shut out in the second half. And it's a defense that's exceptional. Chris Jones is double-teamed like 75% of the time last night, and he was dominant.
And he had 2 sacks and 4 pressures, I think, even being double-teamed.
Dominant. They, for what it's worth, the Chiefs run the football well on Philadelphia's defense. Eagles are known for stopping the run. They can't stop Kansas City. The Chiefs ran it on them in the Super Bowl too. But the difference is the splash plays, the big moments that have been the routine for KC is not there. And it's a different way they're going about winning, and they're still really good. I still think they're going through Arrowhead if you're in the AFC and in the postseason. But, Chad, it's just a bit different, and that is why I'm not on board with the Chiefs going back-to-back as much as I was whenever the season kicked off. Philadelphia, meanwhile, it's rare to see the team that loses the Super Bowl get back in and supercharge things the year after and get back to that game and win it. But right now, they're the best team in the NFL.
Well, the biggest surprise last night was when Philadelphia didn't do the brotherly shove on a 3rd and short at one point, tried something different and didn't get it. The problem with that being the biggest surprise is that nothing about Kansas City's offense surprised me last night. And that's a troubling trend.
Yeah.
This has become all too normal now for KC. The no touchdowns you mentioned in 3 straight games, the drop passes, they just don't have great receivers. I've been making a living off Rashee Rice anytime touchdowns. That didn't happen last night, but that's not a great thing when that's what you're going to for KC. So something's got to change offensively. I still think it will. I think they're going to be fine in the end. I trust Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to figure something out on that side.
Yeah.
The good news for KC is their defense is legit, and it's going to keep them in games like this. I mean, they're playing who right now is the best team in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they got a great shot at winning the game, if not for a drop. And it's because their defense that's carrying them right now.
Well, the reason I say Philadelphia over Detroit right now, we've seen both teams go on the road and win against Kansas City. The Eagles still have not reached their pinnacle yet of this. This has been a slow burn up to the top where they were winning to begin the season, but they were not playing all that well. But they were pulling the win, by the way, against New England earlier in the year. Now they're starting with one of the top, if not the best roster, top to bottom in the league. They're clicking again on all cylinders. Very few vulnerabilities with the roster. And it was the same thing we were saying about them last year. Very good. And if you're going to catch them, by the way, in the NFC, now's the time to make a move. If the Eagles are going to lose, next 3 games, Bills, Niners, Cowboys. So if you're right behind them trying to get that number 1 spot, start winning now on your schedule because the Eagles could trip up, but it's unlikely based on how things are clicking. It's time for NFL overreaction.
That it is, Hut. And before I even get into my first one, I had a stat. Actually, I think I told Chad earlier.
I was about to bring this up if you weren't. This is good.
Okay. So here is the list of quarterbacks that the Eagles have beaten this year. You have Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins, Patrick Mahomes. You've got Sam Howell. You've also got
Matthew Stafford.
I don't have the list. I'm trying to remember it off
Tua
the-
Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford. Those are the list of quarterbacks they've defeated so far this year.
The one quarterback that has defeated the Philadelphia Eagles, Zach Wilson.
That is a weird fact.
The Jets' defense defeated the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, though. That's crazy.
That was also one of the 2 games. I think there was like a game and a half where Zach Wilson looked like a pro. And I don't even mean like a starting pro quarterback. Yeah, no, he looked like a professionally paid quarterback in the NFL. A backup, albeit.
Okay.
But someone who could make a check playing quarterback. Yeah. The rest of the time, he looks like a guy who should not be playing arena football at any point.
Won't he be doing that this week?
So we know Zach's not going to be winning the MVP, but Jalen Hurts is this year's MVP to get us started on NFL Overreaction.
Chad, I think it is going to be him because I don't think the Eagles are slowing down. They may lose some games here. They've got a desperate Bills team coming up. We know about the Niners and the Cowboys. He was right in the mix last year. They're going to be in prime time coming up a lot. And I think it comes down to him and Tua this year, not Mahomes.
Yeah, I think he wins it last year if he doesn't get banged up and hurt for a few weeks. Yeah, I think it's his. I think Mahomes last year, I think that win last night will go a long way in solidifying it. And this is not an overreaction. I think Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the best team in the NFL. And at the end of the year, that is still going to be the case. They are going to get the bye in the NFC. I agree. Jalen Hurts is going to be the MVP.
And there are some, though, that in the midseason awards, quote unquote, Lamar Jackson was the MVP. The steam, though, is picking up for the Eagles. They have been playing well. Hurts has. And, again, it's consistency. He's got it.
Guys, I mentioned this one last week. I'm throwing it back out there, but the Denver Broncos are making the playoffs.
Chad, what do you think?
I think overreaction right now. So the Broncos are 5-5 at this point. In their division, by the way, the Raiders are 5-6, and the Chargers are 4-6 right behind them. So they're all kind of grouped in right there. AFC playoff picture, the Bills are 6-5. The Bills are going to be better. The Bills are, I think, only going to get better. I don't know that the Broncos are going to sustain this.
They're the Browns
and then
and
you
Texans
got the
coming
brutal, AFC North with Ravens, Browns, Steelers, all with better positioning than them right now. The Jags and the Texans. Who had Jags-Texans, by the way, is one of the biggest games of Thanksgiving weekend. And maybe the biggest one, but that's what we have this weekend. I'm going to say no. That's an overreaction. The Broncos are not making the playoffs.
To me, it comes down to, do you think that the Steelers and the Browns are going to continue winning at a rate to where they're going to be in the 6 or 7 spot? And I don't think so. I don't think the Browns are going to be there. So who is it? Is it the Bills? I think the Bills. But there should be one more team. And that comes down to, Chad, Texans or Jags, one of the two. We see what happens on the field this week. And then Denver. There's always that one crazy push down the stretch. Denver's doing that right now. Houston's also doing that right now. I'm going, though, with C.J. Stroud over Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson's been playing well. But C.J. Stroud, everyone has complete confidence in him. And when you turn the game on, it's not just a final drive. He's done it now 3 games in a row, winning on that final possession. I'm taking Stroud and the Texans currently. And both teams, had you told me this at the start of the season where they're 0-2, no way I'm saying they're making the postseason.
Davey, if you ask this question next week after Browns-Broncos and the Broncos won, my answer may be different, but as of today, I'm saying no, they're not making the playoffs.
I'm buying it. They play the Chargers twice. They get to play the Patriots at home. They get to play the Raiders. I just think their schedule shapes up so well.
They go to Vegas. They do get the Chargers twice. They also go to Detroit, to Houston.
Check out that Texans schedule, though. It's easy compared to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The Texans have yet to play the lowly Tennessee Titans.
Get them twice
in the division. They've got them 2 more times.
They also get the
wins.
Jets coming up as well.
Yep.
And the Browns.
All right, guys. They were able to get a win this week, but this is Matt LaFleur's last year in Green Bay.
I don't think so. I think we will see a lot of chatter about jobs and openings, but you have to have someone in mind to fill that position. And they're going to have a middle of the first round pick based on where they're drafted. Jordan Love's not that guy. And LaFleur is going to get more than 1 year to prove that he can do something without Rodgers.
I'm with you, Hutton. I think 1 year without Aaron Rodgers and 1 year with Jordan Love is not going to be enough to get him fired. The schedule's pretty tricky the rest of the way. They still go to Detroit. They host Kansas City. But they also have games coming up against the Giants, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Chicago. They're going to get some wins here. This final record is not going to be terrible. I feel like this is probably a 7-10, 8-9 type team at the end of the year. And if Jordan Love doesn't just completely fall off the map and does something the rest of the way, and I think he will, I think LaFleur is going to be safe, and they'll give him at least one more year.
Going into the year, I believe he had won, and again, I know it's Rodgers too, but he had won 71% of his games. It's kind of like the Vrabel chatter here, hot seat wise.
Well, you mentioned the hot seat, and you look at a lot of the names that are currently on it. We have 8 or more head coaching changes in the NFL during this offseason.
I don't think we will. I think we will be surprised by one that's not being mentioned. We will also be surprised about who gets the one more year playoff or pink slip. I think it'll be 6 or 7. It's not going to be 8 or more. That would be a lot compared to what we've seen recently.
McDaniels is the only one to go so far, but guys that are currently on the
Staley,
hot
for
seat
sure.
list, yeah. You look at the Bears with Matt Eberflus. Todd Bowles been showing up for the Bucks. Brandon Staley, as you just mentioned, with the Chargers. Ron Rivera, the Commanders. Robert Saleh, things aren't exactly going well with the Jets. And recently, Frank Reich with the Panthers' name's been popping up. We discussed Belichick earlier in the show, and then, the Titans and Mike Vrabel.
Well,
The Frank Reich thing is crazy to me.
Yeah,
I mean, is David Tepper gone insane?
probably.
I saw something where he owns like 3 other pro sports teams, like an MLS team, and he fired all the coaches after a year with those teams also. Fired one after making the playoffs, I think. This is becoming too much of a trend with him, if that's a legit report.
I know why you didn't include him, because the owner said he's not thinking about it right now, but Arthur Smith in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Also, Dennis Allen in New Orleans. You better make the playoffs if you're the Saints.
That's a good one.
There's a lot of names on that list.
Coming up, Jim Nagy joins us. We will scout the best in college
A lot
football.
of names on his list.
No doubt. Executive Director of the Reese's Senior Bowl previews Ohio State and Michigan. How many NFL players are on the field this weekend?
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish. And we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on. Jim Nagy will join us coming up, plus John McClain. And Kelly in Vegas. Time to get back to our winning ways, Chad.
I wonder what it's like for John McClain, and we do need to get back. She needs to give us some winners this week. I've got a good pitch for her also. It's in a state she knows a lot about, will be my pitch today.
All right.
I wonder what it's like for a John McClain. Need to ask him this. When you go into a season on a beat or covering a team in a city like he has for so many years, expecting one thing and maybe get something totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Good or bad, what that ride is like for a team and a reporter on a beat. I may have to ask him that when he comes on.
Jim Nagy joins us, the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl. His weekly visit here with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow on the OutKick Network. Jim, good to see you, man. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Ohio State, Michigan, coming up this weekend. How many NFL players are going to be on the field this weekend?
Both sides of the ball in this year's draft. I mean, the hard answer there is how many guys are going to go back with this NIL money. A couple of years ago, that number probably would have been in that 25 to 30 range. And now these schools can give these guys some NIL cash and get them back, and it's a good thing. A lot of these guys are making better football decisions. So I would say probably around 20 in this year's draft, probably 10 apiece.
And what would you guess or estimate, or the estimate would be on just total, even guys that come back or guys who are not eligible yet that would be playing in this game?
Including underclassmen, just about every guy that's lining up on the field. I mean, that's how when you get an Alabama-Georgia matchup or an Ohio State-Michigan matchup, that's not many guys start for those teams that don't play in the NFL these days. There's very few guys that just kind of top out as like good college players. So yeah, it's a long list.
I'm curious, just from a scout's perspective, when you watch Michigan, Ohio State, and you got a player in that game, do you place a heavier weight on how that player plays in a game like this as opposed to other games when you're watching film on someone? Is that something that can just stay in your head and you go back and say, but remember what this guy did in the biggest moment against the best competition and how he performed? Is that something you weigh?
That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely. Back in, now that NFL tape is digitized in all these buildings, they can break that stuff down by different, situational football. And we used to do these things called prospect matchups when I was with the Seahawks my last couple of years, and you could basically input all your grades into the system and then filter it out based off, like if you have a receiver that you're looking at, you could filter it out by the corners that you have graded at a certain grade level against that one receiver. So there's a lot of ways to do it. I only say all that is that back in the day, when all you could do is grab a beta tape and stick it in the machine and watch it, you would always grab a Michigan-Ohio State game first, or a big rivalry game, whatever that might be, whatever the game's most important on that school schedule, where guys are ramped up and there's pressure behind it. Those are meaningful because, I mean, you're trying to see what guys will do on big stages, in pressure games, because that's where every NFL team wants to get to, is in the playoffs. And those games are all different. Everything's ratcheted up more. So you're trying to check those college games. So rivalry games, bowl games, a big prospect on prospect matchup. If it's a left tackle against a pass rusher and the player, it's big for him in that one game and he knows it. How does he respond in those settings? So yeah, absolutely. It's a big game for all those guys.
Jim Nagy, our guest here on OutKick. So some of the invites are out. One of those that's been accepted, the quarterback class you've mentioned, tough to really figure out how many you're going to invite, how many are going to be there in Mobile in February. Spencer Rattler will be there. He's coming. Knowing that and just comparing him, Jim, what you saw at Oklahoma to what you've seen at South Carolina, what are you eager to see throughout the draft process about how teams will grade him?
Yeah, we were excited last night to get Spencer his acceptance in. We had Michael Pratt from Tulane was our first quarterback. Now we got Spencer. I don't get rattled with some of these quarterbacks. It takes a while for some of them. We didn't get Justin Herbert, on board until after the Rose Bowl that year. We didn't get Jalen Hurts until after his bowl game. A lot of these guys like to wait it out and just see it all the way through with their team. It's kind of a unique position that way for us. But Spencer's grown a lot. Even from last year to this year, he and I were texting last night after he accepted the invite, and just the consistency. Like last year he had 18 touchdowns in 2022 for South Carolina, but 6 came in the Clemson game. So there were some real peaks and valleys in his play. He's really, really evened his play out. He's done a really nice job this year. Decision-making has been cleaned up. He's played from a lot of muddy situations. He's been under duress a lot behind that South Carolina offensive line, and he's really held up well. Probably shown more mobility than a lot of teams thought. So just going into the process, I think, being totally honest, I think he's going to have to answer some questions based off, some of the show he was on, whatever the name of that show was back when he was in high school, QB1 or whatever that was. I don't watch a lot of that stuff, but I think some of that stuff raised some question marks. But again, I don't think any of the three of us would have wanted a camera on us as 17-year-old kids in high school. I can speak for myself. I know I certainly wouldn't have. So no, I think Spencer's way beyond that. You talk to the guys at South Carolina. He's done an unbelievable job being a leader for that football team, and just his work ethic. He's done a great job. So I think the interview process will be important for him, but it is for all these quarterbacks. It's paramount. That's why we brought Hendon Hooker to the Senior Bowl last year to let him go through the interview process, just because the one-on-one time is so important. But Spencer's got a big-time arm. He's going to have a great week down here. Hopefully, we'll get his receiver Xavier Leggett, who's had a great season for those guys as well. So those guys will have they'll be on the same page right away, day one. Throwing with each other. So no, that was a good one. It was good to get Spencer on board last night.
You mentioned that you're not sweating the quarterback decisions. In many cases, and I don't know if the audience would know this, explain the invite process, because a lot of the big programs and big coaches have not released those invites yet to their team.
Right. So that was protocol before I got to the Senior Bowl. Long-standing protocol with the game is we send the invites to the head coach, and then they can disseminate those invites the way they see fit. And I've got the utmost respect for what they're trying to do right now in their buildings, trying to win games and finish out the season strong. So like we don't directly connect with these players. I don't call them. I don't DM them. I don't call the families. Like they've got much bigger fish to fry than figure out what all-star game, if they're going to play in an all-star game or not. So we send them to the head coach. Like you said, I know, the Michigans, the Ohio States, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama. I know there are a lot of those schools have not even given the guys their invites yet. So these next few weeks will be big. They'll all get them after the season ends. Coach Saban will probably hold his till after the SEC championship game. That's typically what he likes to do up there in Tuscaloosa. So we'll wait. And then, there's a lot of layers to this thing. Now, I brought up the NIL piece. That was never a thing, before a couple of years ago. And now we've got the juniors that we can get in the game, and we can't even invite them until they officially declare later in December or January. So it's going to be way more of a fluid process than it's ever been. That's all right. That's all right. We'll wait it out and we'll see how it all goes down.
One of the players that you pointed out in your preview earlier this season with us about Texas and Bama was T'Vondre Sweat, and the big nose tackle is going to be at the Senior Bowl. How high can he elevate his draft prospect and status? Can he be an early second round pick, a top 50 type pick?
Absolutely. Yeah. And he's already moved a ton, guys, because he was eligible for the Senior Bowl last year and we did not invite him. So, our cut line on the D line usually starts in the 5th round. So that tells you a year ago, we didn't even have him in the 5th round. I think safely right now, he's somewhere on day 2, probably in that 2nd, 3rd round range, depending on what team you talk to. But he has that quality that we used to talk about going way back to my Patriots days. Coach Belichick and our GM Scott Piola used to, say guys don't grow on trees. And guys like this you get nimble, athletic, 6'3", 6'4", 360, 370-pound men. They don't grow on trees. So if you want to get them, you better take them. So he's already moved up at least 2 or 3 rounds from where he was a year ago. And I think where he has a chance to make that next jump is down here in Mobile. I think everyone knows he's hard to move in the run game, and he's kind of the immovable force. And now if he can come down here and collapse the pocket and really put offensive linemen on skates and one-on-one drills and show that he can affect the quarterback, that's where you see these interior defensive linemen make that next jump. So I think that's what he's got in front of him. That's what T'Vondre's got to prove. I think he's put some of that on tape this year. I think if you come down here and consistently get push, that's where he's going to make that jump into maybe the early 2nd, late 1st round.
I love that Puka Nacua jersey behind you right now, Jim, and makes me think about another receiver, Ricky Pearsall at Florida, a guy who's put up some highlight reel catches this year for the Gators, and you're going to get a chance to see him up close. What can you tell us about the Florida receiver?
Yeah, we're all sitting here in SEC country, right? I thought it'd be good to maybe cover an SEC receiver. Ricky's had a great year. We were in Baton Rouge last week inviting Jaden Daniels. Ricky was a guy that caught passes from Jaden at Arizona State, former teammate. So now, hopefully they'll be back here in Mobile reconnecting. Ricky and I actually talked about that. So we've been watching him for about 3 years. The first tape we started watching on him was when he was a Sun Devil. And he was very similar to T'Vondre Sweat. He was in the mix last year, kind of fell below the line for us in that 5th, 6th round range. And he came back. He's been the go-to guy. He's been phenomenal for Graham Mertz. And he's a guy that does a lot of great work out of the slot. He's a legit punt returner, not a guy that just can go back there and catch it. He can actually do something with it once he gets it in his hands. So, again, I think he's a guy that's probably in that late day 2, early day 3, probably 3rd, 4th round range, probably moved up a round or 2 himself this year. So we had 7 receivers go, I think in the top we had 7 receivers go on day 2. And Puka wasn't one of them. He went in the 5th round. So I think Ricky's going to be in that mix to be another day 2 receiver for us this year.
You are going to be at the Iron Bowl. Auburn's coming off of this awful loss to New Mexico State. Bama knows where they're headed. They're headed to Atlanta. The Iron Bowl always filled and packed with intrigue. What are you looking forward to? And who are you watching specifically, Jim?
Yeah, it looks like a really bad loss if you're an Auburn fan, right? At New Mexico State, that's not one you thought you were going to drop. I will say this to Auburn fans, it's probably not going to cushion the blow at all, but Jerry Kill is a really good football coach at New Mexico State. He's won at a lot of places. I want to say when I first started covering schools I think he was at Southern Illinois, and then went up to Minnesota. So he's a really good coach. Again, doesn't take the sting out of that loss. I'm sure Auburn fans, and I'm sure that Auburn team felt like they were going to be rolling into the Iron Bowl off a nice little win streak. But again, if I'm Alabama, this almost makes it more of a trap game. Now you've got lack of a better term, you've got a pissed off Auburn football team, coming in wanting to prove themselves. And Bama, who knows? I don't think Nick Saban will allow his team to look ahead to Georgia. But this could be a little bit of a trap game, and we've all seen this game. I mean, this is one of the classic rivalry scenarios where you might have a team overlooking another team, and that's a dangerous place to be in. So I think this is going to be a good football game. I've thought too many times in the past that that Auburn wouldn't have a chance, and they've actually won this football game against Nick Saban's team. So it should be a good one. I think some of the guys that we're going to be looking at, I'd like to see Jermaine Burton against this secondary at Auburn. We've invited this another school that Auburn has not given out their invites. We've basically invited their entire secondary.
Wow.
So let's see what Jermaine Burton does against these guys.
Yeah, if they're watching, they're going to be excited with that if they don't have the invite yet. Jim, Jim,
Yeah.
happy Thanksgiving to you. Enjoy it. Enjoy the atmosphere of the Iron Bowl there in Auburn, and we'll catch up next week.
Yeah, guys, have a great Thanksgiving, and to all the viewers, happy Thanksgiving out there.
Thank you,
Same to
Jim.
you and your family,
Happy
man.
Thanksgiving to you too. Thanks.
Jim Nagy, one of the best there, executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, and we'll be breaking down a lot of the top players, including the Heisman finalists when those are announced. Get his take on who will be at the Senior Bowl and who won't, who gets invites and who doesn't. Chad, coming up, based on your motivating factors for teams right now in college football, how do we view how Michigan's players have handled all of this drama and saga? That's next.
The chairman, ladies and gentlemen, of our, well, she's not the president, that's Sean Black, but the chairman of the YouTube chat, and she's also the beer captain. She's the captain of beer and IU and partying, our friend Jennifer, a.k.a. Gritty. Gritty, what say you?
Hi, Coach Dockage. It's Gritty, and I was just calling about Caleb Williams wanting to go home and snuggle with his dog after getting beat. If I'm looking to draft a football player, I want to get an alpha male, not a beta male that's going to go home and cry about the loss. An alpha male will go home, work hard, try harder, work on his game plan, and all that good stuff, and not go home and cry to his mommy. Love the show. Peace out.
Ending with a peace out gives me goosebumps because peace out is the way of the world. That's Gritty, and that's right. Women want real men. Real men are dying to be real men. I mean, I'm sorry, but they are. Look, I'm not some macho clown. I'm as sensitive as the next guy. I can't get through a movie sometimes without crying. Sometimes somebody does something really nice for me, and I well up. I learned this. Let me show you something that I learned, Gritty. I learned at movies, or when I'm going to cry, to do this. Watch. What I'm doing is I'm blowing up into my eyes, and that dries them so people don't see tears. I get crying, but I don't get crying when you lose a game, jumping up in the stands and crying with your mother. Honest to God, where does the drama end? Where does it end? Look, a friend of mine made a great point. Maybe it was on this show. I can't remember. He said, Doc, 84, minute 18 to go. You turned the ball over against Virginia. We were up 1. All right, they scored, fine. But guess what? I wasn't going to go in there and cry. I mean, I've thought about it every day for 40, 50 years, but I wasn't going to cry. Wasn't going to happen. No chance was I going to cry. I mean, are you nuts? Hell no. Cry to my mom and dad? If I would have run up, it was with Ken Sterling on Two Big Brains. If I would have run up into the stands at the Omni in Atlanta, buried my head in a book, and wept to my mother under the book would have gone, get in the locker room. And my mother's the holiest of women. There is nobody holier than the great Roberta Dockage. There's not. But my father would have gone, oh, crap. My father would have evaluated himself. My father would have said, what did I do to raise this? Which is exactly what I would have done if Andrew D. would have done that when he played at Ohio State or Michigan. Like, they lost to Gonzaga. All right. If Andrew would have had I guess he played in the game, played about 30 minutes, so I guess he did have a problem, or he didn't help him win, I guess. So there you go. But if he would have come, oh, shut up. I mean, after the game in the hotel, hey, I'm down with that. I'm cool with that. Yeah. Privately. But you don't sit there. See, women like Gritty are real women. They're smart. They're beautiful. They're tough. They just get it. They're not afraid. They'll tell guys when they're screwing up. They'll tell guys when they're great.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network. Chad, how would you describe the Tuesday edition thus far?
I would describe the Tuesday edition. I'll describe not just the Tuesday edition, but this moment right now in time.
Okay, go on.
As 30 minutes away from halfway through our entire show week.
Well done.
Since it's a 3-day week. That's how I describe the way the show started.
When does the weekend begin then?
4:07 p.m. today.
Okay. Fair enough.
Whenever
we'll celebrate.
Whenever I pour my first Frosty one.
Chad determines the weekend.
Yeah.
Here on the show.
I am like the Chinese calendar. No one understands it. No one knows it, but the Chinese.
Just the
and
sign
I'm
of the
basically
dragon,
the Chinese here.
Yeah.
I decide when New Year is. I decide
Sign
when
of
the
the
weekend
draft.
starts. I decide when it's 5 p.m. somewhere and when you can
do.
have a drink also. I am the ultimate decider is what I'm saying, and I will tell you when the weekend starts, and it's going to be very soon.
It helps that we're at 6 the Peabody with EHOB Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the family.
Yeah, I'm
Everyone
once
watching.
again, Hutton, amazed. I don't know why I get so surprised by this, but every time a holiday rolls around this time of year, at the amount of people I know that just don't do anything for the entire week of Thanksgiving.
Total shutdown.
I've heard from so many people like, hey.
Are you talking about people who are not working or are at work?
I'm hearing this. Are you in Nebraska? Are you, and I'm like, I'm working.
Yeah.
I don't. Is this a new thing where no one works on Thanksgiving week? I know having Thanksgiving and Black Friday off in the weekend, but I feel like most people I know now, I'm like, no one's at work. I was at my kid's Thanksgiving feast today, and I feel like every parent was rolling in sweatpants.
Well, I think a lot of the parents are taking off based on their kids being off, right?
Well, my kids aren't out of school till tomorrow. They have 2 days this week.
I have friends, though, who have their kids out all week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Where was this
schedule
when we were in school?
I'm with you, man. I'm thinking.
I feel like my kids' generation is maybe smarter than me in a lot of ways. Maybe that's education is better. But I also think
you and I
maybe
are
we're – well, yeah, that could be the case too. But I think, Hutton, maybe we're just a lot smarter because we were in school so much more.
I could have gone half the time and been, this stupid, though.
It's the amount of breaks. I just don't understand the length of the breaks.
Yeah.
I joked before, but I think there was one year where I got out on December 23rd was when Christmas break started. I feel like it was in the 20s. I mean, man, it's really late this year. Is Christmas Eve tomorrow?
The only people working or going to school, Chad and Bob Cratchit.
Yeah, I had a half day on Christmas Eve in my school system. We didn't get out until July 4th for summer break.
We got the top headlines coming straight ahead. You mentioned
if you have a job, by the way, where you don't work at all this week, let me be the first to apply.
I think it's a lot of people.
Good job. Way to go.
I think
that's a good gig.
We're a bit insulated to this based on the sports calendar.
Well, there are a lot of people in sales that I know that work in sales or the entertainment industry, the music industry specifically here in Nashville.
Yes.
That when Thanksgiving hits,
they're done for a while.
It is like final exams, midterms, whatever in college. They are done until after the new year. Like the music industry shuts down the month of December. It's impressive that they get off that much time. They're done. Now, there are other parts of the year where they're very busy day and night for certain stretches, but it'd be nice to have like a college kid. I remember coming home from college and working at a Ralph Lauren polo outlet during Christmas break because I had so much time off. I'd have like a month and a week to go and get paychecks and work during the holiday season.
Maybe you got some in the chat here. Is it Ralph Lauren or Ralph Lauren?
I think it's Ralph Lauren.
I
can answer that as someone who's an employee of this company.
Yeah.
Somewhere I am on file with Polo Ralph Lauren as a
Chad
former
can
employee.
fold a shirt perfectly.
I'll be glad. Now, we're on video every day. I'll be glad to do a demonstration for everyone. I need a folding board though. To pull it off perfectly,
they have one here.
I need a folding board.
We can get that for you.
And I can do it. I can display to this day the Polo Ralph Lauren folding technique that they taught me in the first day of orientation to make sure that the little horsey is on the bottom of the shirt. I'm not even joking. There's a way to do it that you display the little Polo Ralph Lauren horsey on the shirt perfectly on the bottom left. If you're looking at the bottom left-hand side.
It's the polo player?
I think the technical term is horsey, is what they go for. Like the horsey sauce at Arby's. It's the same way, spelled the same way.
The other thing, Marriott or Marriott?
Marriott.
In the
I love how I'm just answering this like I know for sure.
Marriott.
I'm just telling you how I say it.
I know. I've been saying Marriott too. I feel so stupid for that. Based on how they say it in their own ad.
Really?
Yes. Pay attention.
Okay, I'm going to pay attention to it. Maybe it's the accent of the person doing it.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it's Marriott.
It's a Midwestern accent, Jeff.
It's a perfect. Ohio.
It's like you fold a shirt.
This person is from Dayton. They have no accent. No
Very
regional,
gray though.
No regional dialect at all. It is just perfect American accent. There's another good poll question that we should explore at some point. What state features the perfect American accent? And what I mean by that is there's really no sign
you can't tell where they're
of
from.
a regional accent from this state.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, somewhere in the Midwest.
It's Indiana, possibly Ohio. I think Indianapolis would be a good example of this.
Maybe so.
Maybe some parts of Ohio.
You think there's another victory for Doc?
Missouri.
Missouri, yes.
St. Louis, Missouri.
What about
would
Nebraska?
Be a good one.
Can you speak on behalf of Nebraska?
Nebraska's got an accent. They're a little up there.
Arizona?
You go a little further up there, you're going to have some more accent.
What about Arizona?
They kind of get into a yaw.
I'm just thinking about where we've been recently.
Arizona's good, yeah. Parts of the Southwest would be a good one. Arizona's nice. That's good. Utah?
I don't think so.
They don't have accents in Utah,
I don't know. I can't remember.
Pete says Montana.
Okay.
I think Montana would have like more of a South Dakota, North Dakota accent too.
Now I think of Montana, I think of Costner.
Yeah, and Costner on the show is
and
like
whisper and yell.
He's almost sounds like he's from Texas, like he's a cowboy.
Yeah, that would hurt my vocal cords having to do that all day, every day.
These are great examples. Jake says Missouri or Wyoming.
Okay.
That's just because we don't know anyone in Wyoming.
Yeah,
it's the
I'll have to take
sparsely
your credit for it there.
populated state out there. I don't know a single person from the state of Wyoming. I wouldn't even know where to begin what someone from Wyoming sounds like.
But you want to be the wingman for Josh Allen.
I do. He did play at Wyoming, not from there.
Michael Thomas headed to injured reserve for the Saints. So bad news for not just the Saints, but specifically Carr with another weapon going down. So we know how we view Harbaugh right now. I think the general consensus is he absolutely knew what was going on.
Everyone other than Michigan people, how they view it.
Yeah, but there are still like former players that didn't play at Michigan. They're just like, this is way overblown, right? But they would also lean towards the idea that he definitely knew what was going on. But props to, like, for instance, UCLA and how they handled last week. And I sat here and said on Friday of last week, and Davey saw through this. I was like, UCLA knows, the players know that the report's out there, and there's no backing or denying this report that Chip Kelly's out if he loses. If he wins, well, he could be out at the end of the season. I don't know mentally how I would react to that if I'm a UCLA football player, for instance. But they handled it perfectly and boat raced a team that has thrown in the towel, and they waved the white flag. Michigan's players have not done that. And in a weird way, Chad, I respect the hell out of that, about how they've treated this, using it as motivation. I get it. Sometimes you have to manufacture your own motivation, but it's not like Michigan is Georgia. So if Michigan goes on a run to win the national championship, hypothetically, it's not going to be the three-peat. It's going to go down in history as what? Because we're going to view Harbaugh, I think, in a different light than the players, but it's going to be effective. J.J. McCarthy's not being mentioned for a Heisman campaign, and I guess he wouldn't because they hand off 36 times in the second half against Penn State. But he can let it rip. He was mentioned in the Heisman discussion midway through the season, not because he's handing off to running backs all the time. Point being, I respect the players, but I don't respect the program right now. And that's a weird balance that I don't think I've ever felt before. And I only say that because I can't directly pinpoint in my own common sense perspective, that the players knew. I reserve, the right to change my opinion based on evidence that players knew. But common sense tells you the head coach knows about this stuff. Do the players know the depths of which Connor Stallions was going to do this? I can't say it's obvious they did. And because of that, I think they've handled this in a way that, should be brought up more than what it is. Instead of just, no Harbaugh, how does this affect what Michigan's going to do against X, Y, and Z? It didn't affect them in the first 3 games. It shouldn't have it. It didn't. How much does it affect them on Saturday? It could, when it's actually a big moment where you've got to have a big coaching decision. But I think the players have handled it and will handle that moment well, because that's what they've done all season. You agree?
Yeah, it feels almost like Stockholm Syndrome with the Michigan program right now.
Yeah.
And that they have now sympathized with their captor in Jim Harbaugh, and it's almost a brainwash scenario. And I mean that in a good way for the outcome of these games.
Yeah, and I know what you mean, too. You're
I think
saying
they're so insulated.
Any program would be like this, though.
I don't know that any program would. I think it speaks to their togetherness, right? I think that they have been properly brainwashed into believing that everyone's out to get them, and that their staff has done nothing wrong.
But I would say that
they're just smarter than everyone else.
The teams in the playoff currently would all react the same way. Georgia,
I think so. Yeah. I think the ones that we're talking about, the top probably would.
Yes.
But no, I don't think it affects the players much at all, other than they're just to carry on a chip on their shoulder that everybody's out to get us.
There's a lot of distraction, though.
Yeah, at some point that motivation has to work the other way. That someone else has to be so motivated to end this cheating dynasty that they go out and beat them on the field. It's got to be Ohio State this week is the team that needs to do it. They haven't been able to do it so far. I think they're very together. It's almost a brainwash scenario with the Michigan players. They're also very good. I don't know that if they beat Georgia, if it gets to a national championship game and they beat Georgia, then Georgia people can come back and say the only thing stopping us from a three-peat was cheating Michigan that the NCAA had not gotten around to yet, and then let them play in that game, and they got around to them later. So I think it'll change the historical narrative of what happened in this season. I don't know how it's going to be seen from everyone depending on who they play in the playoff.
Well, I think in large part, I think there will be many that just say they served their suspension and the punishment was handed down when it could be by the Big Ten, and that's it. These players aren't going to be affected by any penalty by the NCAA. I'm just saying, in this day and age where there's so many reasons at the slightest idea of distraction, especially this era, Michigan's been the opposite, and I respect it. I do. Meanwhile, you have a hiccup here or there, or you have whatever's going on week to week in College Station, for instance, and they can't seem to move the football offensively last year, with one injury. What happens in Florida State now? We'll find out. But we know what the saga's been like all off season and all season in Ann Arbor, and all they've done is win. And that's due in large part to just the moxie and mental makeup of the players. Harbaugh's right when he stands at the podium and points to the players in this.
No, he is. And I'll ask the question. I was on with Dan Dockich earlier today and posed the same question that I've talked about with you. At what point are Michigan fans ever fed up with this? And I'm going off the report from Bruce Feldman that it could be a long-term suspension next year also.
Yeah.
I get right now you're along for the ride and you're undefeated and you don't want it to end. And you want to keep Jim Harbaugh as a part of it and keep as close to status quo as possible so you can go win a national championship. No one's begrudging Michigan fans for feeling that way, but if you're put out of your national coverage nightmare misery soon and you're not playing in the playoff or your season's over, how quickly do you sober up? Because right now you're drunk off winning on the field and destroying everyone. But how quick is the sobering up if you're Michigan into the offseason thinking, so we're going to wait this thing out and see the NCAA hammer Michigan even more because we still employ Jim Harbaugh and maybe suspend him for an entire season, and then they're also going to levy more scholarship reductions? Is it ever going to be enough is enough for Michigan? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I get why it isn't right now
Yeah.
because of what's happening on the field. But do we ever get to that point?
I don't. I think the only way you get to that point, and maybe I'm just foolish for thinking this, is if you lose to Ohio State. I mean, as long as you keep winning this game and you have Charles Woodson, Desmond Howard, and others like buying in and preaching that it's a farce and it's awful what everyone's doing to Michigan and what they're facing. There's no reason why the fan base should think any different, because the fan base is following, the team and the idols and the top players, the former players, the coach that won. I don't think that would be any different than most programs from a fan base perspective. You have to lose. You have to lose. Or what if Harbaugh flirts with the NFL again multiple times?
You're also going to have fans, though, that are going to say, once they lose, oh, you got your way, national media. You got your way with all this coverage. You broke us down mentally.
Yeah.
And now all the distractions finally added up, and you got your way, and Michigan's out of it. There's going to be a big response that way also.
The Super Bowl rematch last night, Chiefs and Eagles, averaged 28.9 million viewers for Monday Night Football. It's the most watched Monday Night Football game in over 25 years. Easily the most watched NFL game this season. That brought it. 21-17 was the final. Hit the under. Hey, the under survives again.
And it was a much hyped game. It feels like kind of a before and after for the season. Now that game's over, it was so anticipated, so much talk about it. Now it's like you can look at both chapters of Chiefs, Eagles, and see what happened before and now what's going to happen moving forward after that game and after that big meeting on Monday Night Football.
We'll break down the result of that. What happens now with the Eagles? They go on a stretch now with the Bills and Cowboys coming up that we'll dive into with John McClain. Plus, Bill Belichick and the Steelers making an in-season coaching move, firing Matt Canada. It's the first time the Steelers have done this since 1941. John McClain joins us next to react. Hot Mic with Hunter with our rolls on across the OutKick network.
The rest of the world doesn't know this. I have a day drinking day that I have at the owners meeting, and it's Mike Tomlin and I throw it, and it's only for head coaches and GMs. No other media is allowed to come, and the media over time has given us respect. Like, this is Glazer's thing. Let's not go there. And it's usually Tomlin and I and upwards of 30 other guys. It's crazy. But what I also do is I always tell Tomlin and whoever the older coaches are, tell these young cats what's about to come across your desk, because they have no idea. Like the craziest stories in the world, you're not prepared for it. Because when you're in that position, you really find out how messed up everybody is. Like it's not just your players, it's your coaches, it's your scouts, it's your GMs, it's the person in the cafeteria, it's everything. And then it's their family and the issues families are calling. And oh my God. And listen, these cats didn't go to school for this. They didn't go to school to be a psychiatrist. Right? They went into coaching to coach.
Right.
But when you're a head coach or a GM, that's part of the job. The other part is really, it all lands on your shoulders. So I make Tomlin and all the other guys tell the craziest stories that have come across their desk in the early days to prepare the new guys.
Well, and also probably to help normalize everybody else, right? Because we all probably live our lives thinking, oh my God, no one could understand, or no one life is as crazy as mine or as messed up as mine. And then you hear someone else's story, you're like, wait a second, you have me beat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple, and I can't tell them on this, that are there are we go to them. We usually start these fun days off with these couple stories that there's no way I'll ever repeat, but they are like, Charlie, if you said to me, hey, if I told you any of them, you'd say, come on, you made this up. There's no way this could be possible. And the craziest thing about the NFL is that anything's possible. When we did Ballers, people were like, come on, that stuff doesn't happen in the NFL. I'm like, this is a G-rated version of what happens in the NFL. Are you kidding me?
Okay, you just took me to literally the best segue, because something I remember you saying, and I remember you saying it a few times, the NFL is truly the greatest reality show in the world.
Can't make it up.
And that is what you're talking about, is a testament to exactly why. I mean, there's all these stories that happen, and they're not scripted stories.
Yeah. Look at the Raiders this week. They fired their head coach and general manager at 10 o'clock at night and put in ex-Giant linebacker Antonio Pierce to run the team. Like, look at last year with the Colts. They put in Jeff Saturday. Like, you can't make it up, right? So it's just like it's great because even for me, like I said, with these things, like I think I've seen it all. There was something that happened this year. I said, man, we've seen it all, and then this happened. I don't remember what it. I can't remember what it was.
If you think about it, just
okay, yeah, I can't
break
remember
your thought.
what it was. But like, man, we've seen everything, and then this thing popped up just when you thought you've seen everything, and you really like. That's the thing. If and I've been around. By the way, this is my 30th year, right? Is that? I don't know. Yep, 31st year. It's my 31st year. My 20th year at Fox. I started covering the league for the New York Post in '95, so that would make it like. But I started earlier in '93, so that's 31 years. So '95, what was it 29 years covering the league? Yeah. So I've seen it all. I've been around. I think I've seen it all, for the most part. The stuff that's been reported and stuff that hasn't been reported. And yet, every year, there's still things that surprise me.
Kelly in Vegas joins us an hour from now to get the top advice, the picks, the wagers for the weekend.
Make us some money.
That's right. That's what we want to do. Hot Mike with Hutton with our rolls on across the OutKick network. 6th and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Plenty to get to across the NFL. John McClain helps us do that each and every week at this time. You can follow him on social at McClain_on_NFL. SportsRadio610.com is where you can find him. Happy Thanksgiving to you, John.
Thanks, guys. Same to you.
Well, the Steelers did something they haven't done since 1941. They made a mid-season coaching change. Matt Canada fired, and now Kenny Pickett, maybe he's able to throw it more than 5 yards downfield.
I don't know about that. I mean, they've been outgained in every game. They still got a winning record. If the playoffs were today, they would be in there, but it's so unusual for the Steelers to do that, for Mike Tomlin to do that. Now he's got to have a new offensive coordinator, a new play caller. Maybe it'll shake them up a little bit. They're in a tough division, but they're certainly in the playoff race. Don't think they can win it over the Ravens, but it's going to get a lot of attention because, number one, it is rare. But number two, almost everybody was demanding it, and the players wouldn't blame it on Canada. But, man, you could tell those offensive players were at the end of their rope.
It is time for Pickett to show it, though, right? This is now it's more than just an evaluation. They're in the playoff race. They're in the playoffs, as you mentioned, as of right now. But it's time for him to take the reins and move this offense.
Passing games should be better. They can run the ball with Warren and Harris, and that was the only thing they had in this past game was the running game. And they got Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, and they got a good tight end who's been injured. But I don't care who you are, you ought to be able to throw it better than the Steelers do. And it's preposterous for you to have fewer yards than your opponent in every game of the season.
Philly knocks off KC last night, and in the Super Bowl rematch, they're now 9-1. Are they the best team in the NFL?
I think you have to say Philadelphia is because of its record-wise. Baltimore would be the best team in the AFC. I'm pulling for Baltimore, of course, since I picked them before the season. But right now, I don't see any dominant team. The Steelers, I mean, the Eagles are the best. They have one loss. They can beat you running, passing, defense, great defensive line, great offensive line. Chiefs still should have won that game. So many drop passes. It's amazing. And it's amazing because Patrick Mahomes hadn't pulled all his hair out.
Yep.
And he might be filing for some more State Farm insurance because they've been so pathetic when it comes to catching the ball. 26 drop passes for an Andy Reid team that has always been unbelievable against the Eagles and coming off a bye week.
John, to be completely honest, I didn't know what Brandon Staley sounded like until I heard him in his meltdown on Sunday in the press conference. First sign that he's on his way out and that he officially knows he's under fire now with what he did with the media on Sunday after that loss?
Well, first of all, Chad, like, he shouldn't be on the outs because of anything that happened with the media. He ought to be on the outs because his defense is terrible, and that's been his baby. Plus, he hired Kellen Moore. The offense, Justin Herbert's been really good, but they've dropped passes. I felt bad for him. He had passes thrown right into the hands of receivers who dropped them, or they would have won. But the fact is, with Staley, who had a meteoric rise to becoming a head coach, I watched Rex Ryan, the former head coach on ESPN yesterday, just eviscerate Staley and said he should be fired back in Division III or wherever it was he came from when he came into the NFL. And he got his job because he spent a season as Sean McVay's defensive coordinator. But, you can't be sensitive. You just can't. People have to ask questions. And if you can't take the tough question, my goodness, how are you going to handle it when you're terrible? I think he's out. I think it'll be the most attractive job in the NFL because they got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They've spent more money on defensive players, second most money on defensive players to any team in the league.
John, are you okay with Kareem Jackson of the Broncos getting that 4-game suspension based on his history and based on that hit we saw on Sunday night against Josh Dobbs?
Well, he did. He launched himself. He used his helmet to hit him in the face mask and right under the chin. You just can't do that. He's suspended 4 games the last time he appealed. He got it down to 3. And Kareem is a multiple offender. And so at some point, he's going to have to change his game. When he was in Houston for years, he never had a reputation as a headhunter. Now, that's happened for the last 3 years while he's playing with the Broncos. But, yeah, I think it was very fair because he was a multiple offender.
John McClain with us. You can follow him on social at McClain_on_NFL. The Texans' schedule stacks up much better than Jacksonville's down the stretch, which makes this Week 12 matchup coming up even more important. In Houston, Texans, Jaguars, and who would have thought the importance of this game, John, this late in the season?
Nobody. Jaguars are reigning opponents 28-33, Texans 27-33. Texans play after Jacksonville, one team with a winning record, Cleveland, here without Deshaun Watson. Jacksonville gets Cleveland and Cincinnati in the next 2 games without Watson and Joe Burrow. So they do have to play Baltimore and Lamar Jackson, but it's a big game. Texans have beaten them 10 of 11. In the games they have played on the road against the Jaguars, 6, they've averaged 25.5 points and allowed 10.5. At home, it's 25 even and 12.5. And the only win for Jacksonville going back to 2017 was last season when they won here 37-3. So the first game, 37-17 in Jacksonville. D'Amico Ryans, his first victory as a head coach. I don't think there's going to be a game like that, but it's the biggest game in Houston since the Buffalo playoff game after the 2019 season.
John, why does the NFL schedule divisional matchups on Thanksgiving Day? We've got 3 of them on Thursday, another on Friday, and I get that the Friday game now is whatever with the Jets and the quarterback situation against Miami, but 4 stacked games, divisional pivotal matchups on short weeks. Why are they doing that?
Because they get the biggest TV audiences. And everybody's a captive NFL fan on Thanksgiving. These games mean more. So they've been doing that a long time. The best thing about Thanksgiving this year is in the past, I dreaded watching the Lions just get on with the Cowboys. And I loved it when they added the primetime game. And now the Lions, who are 8-2 for the first time since 1962. I was only 10 years old. I think they're a great story. Would love to see them be a legitimate Super Bowl threat. I think it'd be a great Super Bowl if it was the Lions and the Browns. Neither one's ever won one, and they got great fans who'd love to be rewarded that way.
John, hypothetical, based on the hypothetical you just raised, what would be cooler to see? A Super Bowl featuring Lions-Browns, where a lot of America would be okay with either winner, or a Super Bowl with, let's say, Lions versus Chiefs, who've won a lot recently, and it feels like most of America may be siding with the team who never wins in that matchup, as opposed to two Cinderellas facing off in the Super Bowl?
I'm beginning to feel, Chad, like I did with the Patriots. I'm kind of tired of watching the Patriots. I'm kind of tired of watching the Chiefs. They're great. I love Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Taylor Swift and her boyfriend. But I think it would be better to have two storied franchises, which won championships before the NFL merger. Detroit actually won 2 championships in the 50s, and they've won 1 playoff game since. And Cleveland's last championship was in 1964 after Blanton Collier replaced Paul Brown as the head coach. And I'd love to see that kind of Super Bowl matchup. But right now, I'm thinking it's going to be Philadelphia, San Francisco versus Baltimore, Kansas City.
John, are you buying into the Denver Broncos right now?
Boy, Russell Wilson has 19 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and he's not pulling games out himself and throwing long touchdown passes, but he did. And it pains me, like he did in Denver, pains me to say this. Sean Payton's doing a really good job. You know, they're not winning. In Seattle, they won because of great defense and Russell Wilson's magic. Now they're winning for a lot of different reasons, but they're 5-5. They come to Houston after Jacksonville. Texans will have played 3 in a row at home, and that game certainly looks more interesting now than it did like 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, I'm thinking for a wild card berth, they're in the running just like so many other teams are.
So the Patriots and Bill Belichick, he's going to wait until Sunday, he says, to determine who's going to be the quarterback. I don't even understand why you need to wait. I know they're splitting reps, but I don't even know why at this point. Mac Jones, to begin the season, was the only quarterback left on the roster. They cut Bailey Zappe, and now they're splitting reps at this point. John, why draw this out against the Giants where, I mean, with 2 wins, who cares if they're playing Mac Jones or not?
It is ridiculous. It's always about giving an edge to the opponent, and the opponent practices for all of them. At this point, they better make sure they put the worst guy out there, because they got a chance to draft one of these top quarterbacks if they continue to lose, or to put themselves in a position to see if they can capitalize on a trade up and get one of those quarterbacks. Thing is, though, there's a good chance Bill Belichick's not going to be there. You know, maybe the Bears hire him. They need a new stadium. Maybe Mark Davis hires him. He can be reunited with Tom Brady if he's ever approved as a minority owner. And then there's always who wouldn't want to coach the Chargers? You're in LA. You've got a great roster. You have a great young quarterback. Don't know if any of these teams would want him. I just feel that whatever the Patriots do, it's not going to be with him overseeing the organization. This would be the first time since 1999.
Teams are heating up for the postseason runs, and hot seats are heating up. Chad, tell John, or ask him the same question you asked me about David Tepper in Carolina.
Amazing, Hutton. We're like kismet right now, because I was honestly going to ask John that question before he teed me up for it. Looking at the scores this week, I'm looking at Panthers-Titans, miserable matchup between 2 teams headed nowhere right now. And then we get the report this week that Frank Reich is on the hot seat and David Tepper may make a move after 1 year. John, what in the world is going on for a guy who was a minority owner in Pittsburgh? That is the definition of stability. He certainly isn't playing that game in Charlotte.
I read a deep dive by Joe Person, who's covered them for a long time. Now he covers for The Athletic, and he talked about why David Tepper has got his finger on the trigger, so to speak. And he's done this in soccer when he owns a team. He's done it with the Panthers. It'd be like five new head coaches in his organizations in a certain period of time, and they are the dregs of the NFL. But they won, 7 games last year? The problem was they mortgaged everything to trade up to get Bryce Young. They don't have talent on offense. They got some talent on defense, but not on offense. Their line's terrible. They don't have receivers. Adam Thielen is your number 1 receiver. And they say Bryce Young now, he's seeing he's seeing ghosts. He hears the footsteps because you get beat up so much. I think he was sacked 7 times on Sunday. So that means he'd be firing Frank Reich. He'd be firing Jim Caldwell, Josh McCown, a lot of experienced coaches or former players. Personally, I'd give him another year, but that guy, he has been he makes decisions based on a whim, and I can't imagine any owner would tell him he needs to pull the plug. I think Ron Rivera and Brandon Staley share the hottest of the hot seats, and Rivera, after what happened to them Sunday to get pummeled by Tommy DeVito and the Giants, they might as well go ahead and fire him now.
Yeah, just brutal there. Final thing for you, John, final minute here. Vikings back in prime time. Josh Dobbs, Monday Night Football this coming week. They're hosting the Bears. What has Joshua Dobbs done for himself, and what has he done to set himself up for a job this offseason?
He's going to get a job from a team that doesn't get a quarterback. It's amazing what maybe he could do if he has some stability. His head's still got to be spinning. There's a great story in The Athletic last week, going back to when he was in high school and how he got to be so smart. It is so impressive. He's going a lot bigger than the NFL when his career's over. Great success story. I would imagine a lot of teams would want him on the roster, but I don't think anybody's going to say, yeah, you come in, you're our guy, right, unless he continues to play well over the rest of the season.
Be interesting because he doesn't lead the final drive there in Denver, but what a story that continues for Dobbs and the Vikings and the playoff mix there in the NFC. John, thank you as always. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the fam, and we'll catch up soon.
Jonathan Cadillac. Happy Thanksgiving to you. I'll see you next week.
Got it right the second time, John.
Right.
Happy Thanksgiving, buddy.
John McClain.
He's the man.
Cadillac.
Well, he said the actual name of the car the first time.
Yeah.
That's an understandable mistake.
Are we on the bus or off the bus with the Texas Longhorns or the Philadelphia Eagles and the Chiefs possibly making a Super Bowl return to face each other? That's next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad's going to let you know when the weekend officially begins later this afternoon.
By my watch, soon. It's soon. It's all going to happen soon, and I'll alert you when that weekend clock starts. It's gonna happen. I may just interrupt one of Hutton's thoughts and just yell that the weekend is here.
We need an alarm.
Goodbye, everyone. Here comes a recorded interview from earlier this week.
Yeah,
that's what you say it.
Yeah, we'll go live at that point.
Yep.
So, how about the lawsuits that are headed, the class action lawsuit to F1 and Las Vegas Grand Prix, based on the events that took place late last week and then over the weekend? You had a dramatic finish. Max Verstappen wins. He overcomes a collision and a penalty, and then wins his 16th victory in like 17 races or something. But in the first practice session, a manhole cover, based on just like the force of the car going 200 miles per hour, is ripped up on the seal, not the actual lid or whatever they call it, the manhole, the cover. It's ripped out of the asphalt in Las Vegas because for whatever reason, in most of these cities, they choose to like weld these shut, and they didn't do that there. Las Vegas has spent like $500 million on not just the track and the setup, but also having a permanent paddock for the next 10 years. And based on the news and like numbers, Vegas always wins. But they won in a massive fashion at the tables, at the...
no doubt.
Everywhere.
Celebrities in town.
So fans with single-day passes, which was Thursday night, I believe, early Friday morning, roughly, $200 discount at the official race gift shop, but most fans purchased the 3-day pass, and it's pricey, as you might expect. F1 and Liberty Media, they're just saying, hey, cancellations happen. Sorry. I think the session lasted for all of like 8 minutes. I'm interested to see what happens with this because I would be upset with it too, based on how it all went down. And a buddy of ours, Phil Noel, Chad, had a friend of his who went for just that one session. He had a pass for just that one session. Can you imagine?
So
it's like going to Augusta and having something like a sinkhole or something that they knew about but didn't tell anybody about until it actually happened.
Just big picture, okay? Like I'm not going to get into the details of the physics that would cause these manhole covers and all that to be an issue. Just big picture. When you invest in an enormous event,
right?
You got to start inside out. And the inside of it is you have to make sure the competition area is good. It's structurally sound Everything right on top of the competition area is ready to go. You got to get all of that in line, and then you take care of all the surrounding parts of this spectator
It's a massive
event.
undertaking, too.
Right? You have the city ready to go. You have hotel rooms ready to go. You have restaurants and bars ready to go. You get the civic part of it involved. But you got to start with, when you bid on this and you bring something to your town, do we have the infrastructure in place, and are we sure we know everything it takes to put on a race like this with F1 cars going this fast? Start there. You can't screw up that part of it. When that part of it is screwed up, it changes the entire perception of all of it. And I'm sure they had a big economic impact with this event going on in Vegas. They always have a big economic impact in Vegas, but you must start with the basics of it. I think about the was it Sochi, the Winter Olympics, where they had all those issues with housing for athletes in the Olympic
hotel,
Village.
Yeah, the dorms.
Remember
or
that?
Whatever.
Yeah, just now. Granted, we're talking about Russia here versus the United States, but point being,
and the money invested in.
Oh my gosh,
F1.
A lot of money. Well, money invested in the Olympics
Well,
also.
I'm saying just from the F1 perspective, though, like it is a massive undertaking.
Of course, but
it's going to take them 6 to 8 weeks. So it's November 21st, November 19th. They're estimating it will be until January before they take up everything involved with the setup for that track.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Just figure it out. Just make sure everything is ready to go and you know what you're doing.
The result of this will be interesting with the lawsuit, because they're asking for like travel and all these other things. Based on the ticket, whatever's written on the back of the ticket generally is the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
But in the day and age where you lose a bet and someone gets hurt 4 snaps in week 1, you want refunds. Some companies like DraftKings give it to you. FanDuel said, sorry, injuries happen. Deal with it. F1 saying, hey, cancellations happen. But in this case, did they know it could? And did they do everything possible to make sure it didn't? In this case, it doesn't sound like they did.
What is your risk tolerance and how much money are you willing to lose to be a good partner with your patrons, with your customers, with your fans? And if you're willing to lose that money, a sports book saying, we'll spend the $5 million that was bet, or whatever the number. That may be too high on this game. We'll refund every bet under $50 or less on this game. But if you made a lot of money off of it or bet, okay, then we'll go with the technical rule of it, right? However you want to slice it, what kind of company do you want to be? What kind of company can you afford to be?
Right.
When it comes to taking a hit to show that you care about your fans.
Here's your credit back. Go ahead and gamble it again.
Yeah, now that you're going to be more apt, hey, if they give me the money back, I'm more apt to bet more with them and their sports book than another one.
Our version
That's
of
the hope, at least.
Buy or sell is on the bus, off the bus with Davey Hudson.
That it is, guys. We'll get started. Just so happens you all were talking about something that happened in Las Vegas. That's where the Super Bowl is, and that's where we're going to begin this edition of On the Bus, Off the Bus. And we get an Eagles versus Chiefs Super Bowl rematch this coming February.
I'm off the bus.
No, off the bus.
It just never happens.
Well, not only that, this Chiefs team isn't getting back there based on their receivers and just the consistency of inconsistency at wide receiver.
I'm trying to think, have we ever had a Super Bowl rematch in the history of the Super Bowl? I don't believe so. We had the Bills play 4 different opponents in their 4 straight losses.
Right.
Maybe a Cowboys Steelers, maybe at some point, probably had a rematch in there in the 70s. I'm trying to think. I'll go through and look. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we've had so Philly and New England did it most recently, it looks like.
Was the Cowboys and the Bills?
There were six Super Bowl rematches in NFL history.
Philly, New England.
You're right about Steelers, Cowboys.
Steelers, Cowboys is one.
So this is just saying rematches as in like the same matchup.
Yeah, I'm saying
back-to-back years. Bills, Cowboys.
Yeah,
Bills, Cowboys. And that's
Bills lost the Cowboys back-to-back years,
and that's it.
So the Bills lost to the Giants, Redskins, and they were the Redskins then, and Cowboys twice.
We're not seeing it, Davey. Philly can absolutely get back there. Detroit's going to be a mess too to get through. I just don't see KC withstanding the issues that they have and you have to win in different ways. Mahomes and Kelsey are excellent. This KC defense has been really great. But at some point, one of those receivers is going to have to step up. And here we are in week 12, and I just haven't seen it. I'm not buying it. I wouldn't lay money on it. And right now, I'm off the bus on the rematch that we're going to see between KC and Philly.
I'm definitely with you guys. Right now, I believe Kansas City has the lowest points per game in the second half of any team in the NFL currently this season.
Not scoring 3 weeks in a row on that will help you. 3 games in a row in the second half.
I'm not saying Philly's going to be there either. I think it's just so hard to get back, period.
Yeah.
Even to that game. Just the odds of both getting back are so low. I'm off the bus.
All right, guys, and now we're going to switch things up, going to college, but we're going down to Austin, Texas. And right now, the scenarios in which happen to be for the Big 12 and who could be playing in that conference championship, it's all over the place. So
they're still trying to figure it out. They're tiebreakers.
I just read a quote. I want to make sure I attribute the man's name properly. It was his last name was Coles, but he was saying that
Mr. Coles.
He talked. Yeah, I forgot his first name.
That's fine.
Talked to the Big 12 office, and they currently have 128 possible outcomes for tie-breaking scenarios.
What a final year of Texas and Oklahoma, Chad.
I'm picturing. I recently saw Oppenheimer, and I'm picturing all the scientists in the room with a blackboard trying to figure out all the tiebreaker scenarios right now for the Big 12 office. They still haven't quite cracked the code.
I'll leave it to
on
them. Leave it to them on that, and Chad.
Yep.
On the mathematics.
But anyway, guys, the on the bus, off the bus topic for this one is Texas will win the Big 12 championship.
I'm on the bus.
I'm on the bus, too. They are the most talented team in the Big 12. I just, if there's any question, I always revert back to who has more talent. And they are the most talented team in the Big 12. They're going to be there in the Big 12 championship game. I think it's going to be Texas.
They've had some unimpressive second halves recently. They were only up by 2 against Iowa State.
They have a hard time closing.
Since they lost to Oklahoma, they've been very average in their wins.
They gave up a big lead to TCU, who's not very good.
And K-State at the very end there. And now Iowa State were just very average performances. They're not playing like they make the playoff right now, but I think they're playing like they're winning the Big 12. And Chad's right. Talent will supersede all, and they're going to do it here.
What's really great, too, is, you have Oklahoma and Texas both playing their games on Friday, so we'll have a little bit more of an idea.
Big 12 title game is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Just based on how all the teams seem to be on the same plane.
And we finally, after all these months, have Brett Yormark's comments about Texas Tech telling the Red Raider community to get it done whenever they face Texas around Thanksgiving, and lo and behold, here we are.
Yep.
But moving right along, gentlemen.
Every flag is going to be picked apart by Texas faithful in this game because of that statement. Just watch.
Yormark better be there.
You better not have any controversy if you're Brett Yormark in this game.
We're going north, and we're going to Lincoln, Nebraska. And you might be like, why are we going to Lincoln, Nebraska? Well, that's because we have a new record. And Nebraska will be hosting Iowa this weekend. And the total for that game is set at, wait for it, 26.5. And so the statement I have for you guys is the over will hit in Iowa versus Nebraska.
Let me be emphatic here.
Speak for me as well.
Hell no will the over hit in this game. This thing has 13-10 or 10-9 written all over it.
It's a Big Ten rock fight.
Mark it down. This thing is not going over 27. That 27 number seems huge for these two teams. I've watched quite a bit of Nebraska football this year. They have a hard time completing a forward pass. They have one of the worst quarterback situations in all of major college football. Their defense, though, is good. I also don't know if their defense is actually good because when they went against a good offense in Michigan, they couldn't stop anyone. It's just that everyone in the Big Ten West is so awful at doing anything on offense that it's made their defense look good throughout the year. We know Iowa is good on defense. We also know they haven't played anyone because of the Big Ten West. Hutton, this is going to be just like every game in that division. It is going to be a low-scoring affair. Take the under. Hammer it.
They are 121st out of 130 FBS teams offensively, Iowa. They average 18.5 points per game. They've won 3 in a row, 6 of 7, despite all of that.
They would be in the college football playoff.
Oh, yes, they would.
With this offense. Think about that.
And here is a quote from Matt Rule. Quote, "They're so comfortable in a 10-9 game," end quote. We'll see a 10-9 game.
Well, Nebraska's comfortable losing those games too, so they're comfortable in low-scoring ones also.
For the year, Chad, I was telling this to Hutton yesterday. We were looking at it. There are 4 teams that have the best under record in college football this year. They're 2-9 for the overhitting. It's UCLA, Tulane, Iowa, and Ohio State, which I thought was remarkable. But guys, I think it's actually going to hit, just for my 2 cents on it, 16-13 final score. Mark it down. Iowa gets the win, though. But I did just mention Ohio State, and we're heading to Indianapolis for our next stop. And the reason we're doing that is where the Big Ten championship is. And Ohio State will represent the Big Ten West in the Big Ten championship.
Well, they're in the Big Ten East. So I don't think they can.
That is what I meant to say.
I don't think they can represent the Big Ten West. I thought we were going for breaking news here.
No,
Tony Petit's going to change the bylaw.
Let me say, based on the question, I would love to see them represent the Big Ten West because I'd like to see a rematch of Ohio State Michigan because that's really all we need to see in this conference.
We'll get that again.
I'd like to see it 1 week later and just say, hey, Ohio State, you can represent the West in this game. Ohio State.
I'm off the bus.
Will not represent the Big Ten East.
No.
Colin, scrub that from the podcast.
It's going to be
off
Michigan.
Off the bus.
I would rather see Ohio State, Michigan again. So go ahead and give Ohio State the West.
Yeah.
Instead of Iowa.
We may see this matchup 3 times next year. Who knows? At least we get it once on Saturday. Headlines next, including the NFL.
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, of our, well, she's not the president, that's Sean Black, but the chairman of the YouTube chat, and she's also the beer captain. She's the captain of beer and IU and partying, our friend Jennifer, a.k.a. Gritty. Gritty, what say you?
Hi, Coach Stockage. It's Gritty, and I was just calling about Caleb Williams wanting to go home and snuggle with his dog after getting beat. If I'm looking to draft a football player, I want to get an alpha male, not a beta male that's going to go home and cry about the loss. An alpha male will go home, work hard, try harder, work on his game plan, and all that good stuff, and not go home and cry to his mommy. Love the show. Peace out.
Ending with a peace out gives me goosebumps because peace out is the way of the world. That's Gritty, and that's right. You know, women want real men. Real men are dying to be real men. I mean, I'm sorry, but they are. Look, I'm not some macho clown. I'm as sensitive as the next guy. I can't get through a movie sometimes without crying. Sometimes somebody does something really nice for me, and I well up. I learned this. Let me show you something that I learned, Gritty. I learned at movies, or when I'm going to cry, to do this. Watch. What I'm doing is I'm blowing up into my eyes, and that dries them so people don't see tears. I get crying, but I don't get crying when you lose a game, jumping up in the stands and crying with your mother. Honest to God, where does the drama end? Where does it end? Look, a friend of mine made a great point. Maybe it was on this show. I can't remember. He said, Doc, 84, minute 18 to go. You turned the ball over against Virginia. We were up 1. All right, they scored, fine. But guess what? I wasn't going to go in there and cry. I mean, I've thought about it every day for 40, 50 years, but I wasn't going to cry. Wasn't going to happen. No chance was I going to cry. I mean, are you nuts? Hell no. Cry to my mom and dad? If I would have run up, it was with Ken Sterling on Two Big Brains. If I would have run up into the stands at the Omni in Atlanta, buried my head in a book, and wept to my mother under the book would have gone, get in the locker room. And my mother's the holiest of women. There is nobody holier than the great Roberta Dockage. There's not. But my father would have gone, oh, crap. My father would have evaluated himself. My father would have said, what did I do to raise this? Which is exactly what I would have done if Andrew D. would have done that when he played at Ohio State or Michigan. Like, they lost to Gonzaga. All right. If Andrew would have had, I guess he played in the game, played about 30 minutes, so I guess he did have a problem, or he didn't help him win, I guess. So there you go. But if he would have come, oh, shut up. I mean, after the game in the hotel, hey, I'm down with that. I'm cool with that. Yeah, privately. But you don't sit there. See, women like Gritty are real women. They're smart. They're beautiful. They're tough. They just get it. They're unafraid. They'll tell guys when they're screwing up. They'll tell guys when they're great.
Just like that. Final hours here. Tuesday edition. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Glad you're with us. That includes on the YouTube, where you can search out OutKick, join Chad in the chat, and more. Coming up in 20 minutes, Kelly in Vegas joins us. We'll get the top plays, some winners for you going into the rivalry weekend, holiday weekend, long football weekend, Chad. It's always great.
Can't wait. It is one of the best times of the year.
How about the matchups? So we've got on Thanksgiving Day, Packers-Lions, Commanders-Cowboys, 49ers-Seahawks, and then Black Friday, Dolphins-Jets. Now, perception of this going into the season, way different than Packers now. Packers at 4-6, though. The Lions, all the talk. They were starting to heat up all that discussion this time last year. They've lived up to it at 8-2. Meanwhile, the 49ers coming off a win, 7-3. Seahawks losing, and now 6-4 in a pivotal matchup for them from the playoff race perspective.
Does anyone not like Thanksgiving as a holiday?
Oh, everyone loves it, right?
Yeah, but like it's one of the few holidays I feel like certain people are like, take it or leave it. I feel like everyone is at least appreciative of Thanksgiving. I think it has something to do with like the break before the Christmas break also.
Yeah.
Like the start of the holiday season. There's something about that. So it's not just a couple days off. It is a couple days off that signifies a season where you're about to get more days off. So I just, look, random thoughts run through my head. And when you talked about this holiday, I'm thinking, man, it's pretty universally in America just loved. And you can't say that about many things in America right now. But Thanksgiving's one of those things. So, Hutton.
Food and football.
Hutton, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful
Chad,
that
Mary
us and everyone else, that we're all blessed enough to have this holiday.
Yes.
And that pretty much everyone loves it. And if you don't love it, I don't want to know you. So at least we know pretty much everyone loves it, right? I don't even want to know your reason.
Thanksgiving, you can't be friends with us.
You can't mess with this show. Like, you just can't. We're not going to be friends with you.
In today's age, there are those that don't like Thanksgiving.
I don't even want to hear it. Like, I've said this now, and I know that I've called it down, and that someone in the YouTube chat or someone's going to send something on X and tell me why they don't like Thanksgiving.
Royce.
I don't want to hear it.
Royce in the chat's going to get after you
Royce is going to come back and just start putting nonsensical things about the sexes of different people in our chat. That's what he'll do.
Chat, Matt Canada out. As the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, mentioning throughout the show, first coaching change in season for Pittsburgh since 1941. Nuts. But in thinking about the move, it's a Kenny Pickett move, and it's time for him to pick it up. I mean, he's got to go. And if you're Pittsburgh, aren't you? I mean, they're in the playoffs as of right now. Aren't you also trying to determine, like, we're in with him, but are we in with Kenny Pickett moving forward? Because it's been a struggle. To this point, the struggle has been focused and pointed at Matt Canada. And it's rare. I say rare. Maybe it's not as rare anymore. We see in-season coaching changes, but in many times, especially for organizations that don't make many changes, they wait to the off-season. They wait until January or February to make the move. And we see now 2 in a week. Buffalo makes the move, and now Pittsburgh. It worked with Josh Allen, albeit they should go and win that game against the Jets, but they won emphatically. Now will it make a difference for Pittsburgh for an offense that's averaging 18.5 points per game? That's the same as the Iowa Hawkeyes, by the way. 18.5 points per game.
It's now do or die time for Kenny Pickett. And I equate it to Bill O'Brien coming in for Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Into a situation where they didn't really have an offensive coordinator the year before. There was so much confusion about who was calling offensive plays, who was leading the offense. Was it a defensive coordinator doing it? And that's where Mac Jones got the benefit of the doubt to say, this guy didn't even get a chance. But then they bring in Bill O'Brien, and now it's on Mac Jones. He's got to figure it out and be better. He wasn't. He's been benched. Same goes for Kenny Pickett. Now, I'm not putting it on him right now with two guys that were Matt Canada's assistants now being the co-offensive coordinators. So it's not – I don't know that they're going to be a lot better. I think anybody would be better than what we saw from Canada, I would think. But they get their opportunity. So I can't fully put the blame on Kenny Pickett now with these two Canada assistants. But after this, whenever they hire their full-time guy, it's on Kenny Pickett totally at that point for whether or not he's going to be an NFL quarterback and the starter in Pittsburgh for years to come.
Are we going to see Aaron Rodgers as the Jets quarterback this year? We're going to see him on the practice field. He's making the comments today with McAfee that he expects to return in 2 weeks. He's running now, and he thinks he can return to practice for the Jets in 2 weeks. Chad, this is circled on his calendar because it's his birthday, is what he points out. This is where, the quote is, I've said I'd love to be trending towards practicing by my birthday, and he goes on to say that the Jets might be sputtering. Rodgers isn't slowing down his rehab. Quote, no, not at all. I find those two are mutually exclusive. The speed at which I'm doing the rehab has been the same from the beginning. Push it as hard as we can every single day. And when I hear this, I'm thinking, this is more of a publicity stunt than it is a race to get back to the field. It was that, but now it's just headed back to practice to prove that you've done it at your pace, at this fast, breakneck pace, and prove the doubters wrong, which is fine, but there's no way the Jets are putting him back out there with nothing on the line. Why would you do that based on the Achilles injury and knowing there are other instances of pushing guys out there too fast to where something happens, and then what? Another issue? No, you save him for the next season with the millions upon millions you have invested.
We're now into peak defiant Aaron Rodgers territory. This is defiant Aaron, and we've seen it before. He gets something in his head, and he wants to prove people wrong or prove himself right, and he feels like those in media have questioned him about it when he claims something. He's not going to forget about it, and he's going to do everything in his power to prove you wrong. When people laughed at him saying, I'll be back this year from this injury, he made a mental note of that and said, I am going to be back, and I'll show you. This is what this is. He will be out moving around at practice in 2 weeks, probably, is my guess. And we won't see him on an NFL field playing in a game this season because it's not going to be worth it for him or the Jets organization. They're going to need to keep him healthy going into next season and to have an offseason to prepare with this team also. So I think we're seeing defiant Aaron Rodgers again, wanting to prove everyone wrong. And I think in his mind, he will have proven everyone wrong just by stepping on the practice field.
Yeah, I mean,
even though the business decision, Hutton, will be don't play in a game.
And I wonder, I do buy into the fact that he would be pushing to play if the Jets were in the mix.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say, I'm pissed that I wasn't able to play and frustrated that if I was out there, I feel like I'd be playing well and there would be a different narrative around our team. And then he's asked about Zach Wilson being benched, and quote is, I'm so disappointed. I'm sad about that, but it is what it is. Rodgers was, I've never felt like a player did as much as he has done over the first 2 months of his initial injury to then for the psyche, the mentality of the locker room. Because he was speaking on behalf of the organization. He's telling, Joe Namath to shut up about Zach Wilson. And then Namath apologized, backtracked. Thinking about the comments made, the way he backed the team. If he was present on game day, they played much better than if he wasn't. It's bizarre. But the entire organization embraced him. He embraced them, and he continues to do so. I want to see him back.
You
it's just not going to be
you have some
now.
power when you're Aaron Rodgers and you can get Joe Namath to shut up about the Jets.
Yeah.
And to backtrack. And that's the power he has right now. We're going to talk about hot seat, I believe.
Brandon Staley.
Well, Robert Saleh, whose name is floated out there, I'll just go ahead and say it. He's not going anywhere if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want him to go somewhere.
That's right.
So Aaron Rodgers will decide if Robert Saleh is his coach or not.
Do you think
no
that
one
had
else.
something to do with I'll plead the fifth about not why Trevor Siemian wasn't playing ahead of Zach Wilson?
I think Robert Saleh is doing Aaron Rodgers. Well, I don't think Aaron Rodgers going to his office.
Saleh did a nice
telling him
job.
what to do. I'm saying if Aaron Rodgers still believes in Robert Saleh and likes him, he will be the coach next year for Aaron Rodgers. Nothing that's going on this year will stop that from happening. So I can't answer if he's on the hot seat
Nathaniel
because
Hackett will be the OC.
I don't think it's the owner, Woody Johnson, making the call. I think it's Aaron Rodgers telling Woody Johnson whether or not he wants Robert Saleh coaching.
Someone else on the hot seat is Brandon Staley. And Rex Ryan on ESPN yesterday had this to say about the Chargers head coach and whether or not he should remain the Chargers head coach.
I think he should go back in Division III football where he belongs. Look, this guy, look at his resume, man. I mean, I'm sorry. Dude comes in there, 1 year coordinated a team that my wife could coach, all right, with Aaron Donald, all those guys. Stop it.
He's been around
like, give me
a long time.
Oh, yeah. And trust me, she'd do a hell of a lot better job than this guy's doing with this defense. They're the second highest payroll in the National Football League on defense, and they're the second worst.
It's been the defense holding them back. Ryan's not wrong here. There's a foot joke somewhere in there when he mentions
his wife
as well.
Yeah. I was trying to find it, but it didn't come to me
That's
immediately.
right, same. You and I don't think down that path of what Rex Ryan would, certainly.
I was trying.
Chad, he's a dead man walking. This is now the third straight season where there are high expectations for the Chargers. You have just given Justin Herbert a massive contract, and he's 29-30 overall. And when you watch him play, there's not many that would say he's not capable of being in the elite of the elite in the National Football League. But they're not winning because as much as they get leads based on what Herbert's able to do, they give them up. 3 different times this season, they've allowed a fourth quarter comeback for the opponent. That's horrendous.
Well, and Rex
based
Ryan,
on who you have offensively.
Rex Ryan's not wrong on how Brandon Staley got his foot in the door.
Well
you
done.
see what I did there?
Well
I
done.
found it. Is because that he was seen as this boy genius with the Rams, working with the defense with Sean McVay, and that was the Sean McVay rub, and it's worked out with some. Kevin O'Connell comes to mind now with the Vikings.
Yep.
That family tree has worked out. In other cases, it hasn't. And I think there's some resentment from Rex Ryan on that one.
That's a good point.
With how he got in there. And I'm sure a lot of coaches probably feel the same way of they went the route of the young boy genius trying to replicate Sean McVay with the Rams. And it certainly hasn't worked out with the Chargers.
Through the defensive
I
part of it,
will
though,
say
right?
this. It's easy to come back at Rex Ryan and talk about all the mistakes he made as a coach, and how he got himself fired a couple different times and all that. But I respect the hell out of Rex Ryan for at least saying his actual opinions on guys, whereas most coaches would never do that because they always want to end up coaching again and they don't want to insult someone and have someone not like them because clips like that will live on forever when you're a coach. So I appreciate the honesty from Rex Ryan. I'm not going to go about crushing him because Rex Ryan is a hell of a lot better defensive coach than Brandon Staley. He's right about that.
Right. And
Rex Ryan would do better with this defense and what they've allocated. They got the second biggest payroll in the NFL, and all the money they've allocated to defense.
Trades.
And this is the production they get from it.
They sent J.C. Jackson back to doing
It's not good enough. So Rex Ryan's right.
Yeah.
It's a little harsh to say he should go back to Division III where he belongs. But I believe that Rex Ryan, I don't think his wife would do a better job with the defense. I do believe that Rex Ryan would do a better job with his defense than Staley.
I think Rex Ryan's also hearing I'm calling play, stop asking. But we've all seen this defense from Brandon Staley, right? The other part, too, they're just not a well-coached football team. You can see that in the moment. And they take a ton of risks. It used to be the script called for be extremely aggressive against Kansas City. And then all of a sudden, Staley started doing this every week. Fourth down, going for it on fourth down in your own territory. It doesn't help, especially with the defense that isn't great on period and isn't great on sudden change opportunities either. You can take advantage of Los Angeles. Teams have been doing that.
Yeah, and I know Ryan also
It's a bad
said
loss to Green Bay.
he talked about the actual press conference and said it's his job to sit up there, good, bad, ugly, whatever, and answer questions. And that was a completely relevant and fair question that he was asked.
Yes.
So don't tell me about how it's not your job to talk to fans or talk about fans. That is your job in that instance, is to talk to the media, which, by the way, is the conduit to the fans. So you are talking to the fans when you answer those questions. I love what Ryan had to say, and I hope more former coaches have that level of honesty. We saw it from Dan Mullen, a frequent guest on our show, with his post about who should really be on the hot seat in L.A., and he wasn't talking NFL or Brandon Staley. He was talking about Lincoln Riley and not Chip Kelly. Now, you could jump into and say, well, that's his buddy, a guy he worked for, and Chip Kelly. Fine. But I respect him for saying it. There's a lot of people who coaches won't even wade into those waters about another coach getting fired when they know full well a guy should get fired or a guy should get criticized. But fewer and fewer are prepared to say it. I appreciate the fact Rex Ryan said it.
Chad, we continue to hear Gonzaga and Big 12 discussions for basketball. We're going to get into this a bit later. But there's so much talk about it. It fizzled out a bit at the end of last year. We were starting to hear it. Then this offseason. Now it's up there again. This is happening. The question is why? And is it the right move for Gonzaga? Not the Big 12. I would have hit this maybe 25, 30 minutes from now, because Gonzaga is Gonzaga.
Yeah.
They're moving conferences.
They're a top 10 to 15 team every year program.
Yeah, and you have that respect, right? So I want to look at it from the Zag standpoint, because you can schedule whoever you want to every
this
year.
is also Gonzaga's high time. This is their conference
right.
season.
Yeah.
This is their time to make hay and stick around the ratings or throughout the year, the rankings, because they're going to beat everybody in their conference usually.
Hoops coming up, but when we come back, football discussion. And who are we betting on? Kelly in Vegas helps us with that next on Hot Mic.
The rest of the world doesn't know this. I have a day drinking day that I have at the owners meeting, and it's Mike Tomlin and I throw it, and it's only for head coaches and GMs. No other media is allowed to come, and the media over time has given us respect. Like, this is Glazer's thing. Let's not go there. And it's usually Tomlin and I and upwards of 30 other guys. It's crazy. But what I also do is I always tell Tomlin and whoever the older coaches are, tell these young cats what's about to come across your desk, because they have no idea. Like, the craziest stories in the world, and you're not prepared for it. Because when you're in that position, you really find out how messed up everybody is. Like, it's not just your players, it's your coaches, it's your scouts, it's your GMs, it's the person in the cafeteria, it's everything. And then it's their family and the issues families are calling. And oh my God. And listen, these cats didn't go to school for this. They didn't go to school to be a psychiatrist. Right? They went into coaching to coach.
Right.
But when you're a head coach or a GM, that's part of the job. The other part is really, it all lands on your shoulders. So I make Tomlin and all the other guys tell the craziest stories that have come across their desk in the early days to prepare the new guys.
Well, and also probably to help normalize everybody else, right? Because we all probably live our lives thinking, oh my God, no one could understand, or no one life is as crazy as mine or as messed up as mine. And then you hear someone else's story, you're like, wait a second, you have me beat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple, and I can't tell them on this, that are there are we go to them. We usually start these fun days off with these couple stories that there's no way I'll ever repeat, but they are like, Charlie, if you said to me, hey, if I told you any of them, you'd say, come on, you made this up. There's no way this could be possible. And the craziest thing about the NFL is that anything's possible. When we did Ballers, people were like, come on, that stuff doesn't happen in the NFL. I'm like, this is a G-rated version of what happens in the NFL. Are you kidding me?
Okay, you just took me to literally the best segue, because something I remember you saying, and I remember you saying it a few times, the NFL is truly the greatest reality show in the world.
Can't make it up.
And that is what you're talking about, is a testament to exactly why. I mean, there's all these stories that happen, and they're not scripted stories.
Yeah. Look at the Raiders this week. They fired their head coach and general manager at 10 o'clock at night and put in ex-Giant linebacker Antonio Pierce to run the team. Like, look at last year with the Colts. They put in Jeff Saturday. Like, you can't make it up, right? So it's just like it's great because even for me, like I said, with these things, like I think I've seen it all. There was something that happened this year. I said, man, we've seen it all, and then this happened. I don't remember what it. I can't remember what it was.
If you think about it, just
okay, yeah, I can't
break
remember
your thought.
But they're like, man, we've seen everything, and then this thing popped up just when you thought you've seen everything, and you really like. That's the thing. If and I've been around. By the way, this is my 30th year, right? Is that? I don't know. Yep, 31st year. It's my 31st year. My 20th year at Fox. I started covering the league for the New York Post in '95, so I'd make it like. But I started earlier in '93, so that's 31 years. So '95, was it 29 years covering the league? Yeah. So I've seen it all. I've been around. I think I've seen it for the most part. The stuff that's been reported and stuff that hasn't been reported. And yet, every year, there are still things that surprise me.
Who are we fading this week, Withrow? About to find out. Kelly in Vegas with us. Hot Mike with Hunt and Withrow.
Going to see if Kelly in Vegas survived her big birthday weekend. Looks healthy. Looks fine. Looks like she's good to go.
The very healthy Kelly in Vegas.
Very healthy.
Healthy is a very strong word right now. No, it was a great time. Lots of college basketball. It rained most of the time, but I got to enjoy it with some of my best friends. So I would say it was a great success.
Well, happy birthday, and you're alive, and that's all that matters.
That's
so
right.
great work over the weekend.
And happy Thanksgiving to you.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Check out the fade with Kelly in Vegas and Clay Travis at OutKick.com. So we always give you our pitch. I continue to ride with the unders, and I mean, the king of unders is Iowa. Let's set more records. I want to see this continue to go. Give me the under in Iowa and Nebraska for reasons I don't even need to explain to you at 27.5. These teams will barely score this weekend, and I'm going to make some money off of it. I also like Chad's bet, by the way. He likes mine. We'll see which one you're riding with here in a second.
So I am, I know this team well because I went to this school, the University of Tennessee. And I felt like last week they were being way overvalued with only being a 10-point underdog to Georgia. Knowing a lot of the injuries on defense and spots where they couldn't lose people, and knowing that this team has gotten worse the last couple of weeks. Kelly, I feel like they're being overvalued again, even though Vanderbilt has been miserable this year.
So bad.
27 points is a lot for this Tennessee team that is averaging not a lot in SEC play on offense. This offense has not been very good against SEC competition. I think Tennessee wins. I think Vandy covers somewhat easily in this game. Give me the Doors plus 27 in Knoxville.
Oh, this is tough. I told Hutton last week when he gave out the Iowa under, I said, I don't disagree with you, but I'm too late to the party. I can't jump on it now. It's almost like the prime time unders in the NFL. If you haven't been riding the streak, do you really want to be the one to buck the trend? So I would agree. It looks like 26.5, so even starting to pop up there. So if you do like the under with Hutton, I would suggest get on it now.
Let's go.
But good grief, Chad. You want to take Vanderbilt, who is 1-11 against the spread in their last 12 games.
I do.
I don't know if I could do it. I tried to make a case for this team a few times. I understand this is a monster number, but Tennessee should be able to bully this team around, right? In theory, they should be able to air it out. We know what they're going to be able to do on the ground. time of possession, we'll see. But I do not want to take the Commodores here. This one's already up to 27 in some spots. So I'm going to go with Hutton here and say that I like the Iowa under.
Well, I will say to your credit with taking Hutton's on this, I kind of felt the same way a year ago, that Tennessee coming off that loss to South Carolina and Vandy coming off a win, I think, at Kentucky, that it would be a somewhat competitive game. And Joe Milton with his first start after the injury, Tennessee won 56-0 in Nashville in that game, and I think set records running the football. So it may happen again in this game.
I was going to say, that's what this one kind of just seems like. Could Tennessee name the score? Let's see how motivated they are, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes when teams are already bowl eligible, they know that winning doesn't really help anything. They're obviously not going to the SEC championship game. But it is nice to, I guess you could call Vanderbilt your guys' little brother, right?
Yeah. Do you want to go to Jacksonville or Nashville? That's kind of the postseason motivation right now for Tennessee. It's either Gator Bowl or Music City. But yeah, I mean, look, we've had a big discussion about this. You get 12 games. I get that psychologically not every game is going to feel the same, but you would hope that an in-state rival to some extent would give you some level of motivation, and the fact it's one of 12 games you get to play.
Listen, I do not doubt that, but yet we see teams falter. It all comes down to coaching and the locker room and how you get your guys up for every single game. There's teams out there that have just been absolute shockers this year. New Mexico State being one of them. That is an attribute to, let's give a pat on the back to Jerry Kill for that one, because he's able to coach up his team. That's how they were able to win last week at Auburn as monster underdogs. So we'll see if the Vols are going to be up for it. They should be. I like to think the Heupel is a good coach. So let's see if Vandy doesn't get absolutely throttled here.
Chad, I gave Kelly full credit last week. She's been crushing it on these picks. I want to get to your parlay in a moment, but let's start with the game of the week with Ohio State and Michigan. How are you playing this, and why, with Michigan hosting the Buckeyes?
This is tough. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I said this on the fade earlier. Did you guys see Dan Dakish's tweet earlier in regards to the laundry list of items that he had against Jim Harbaugh? There was things on that list. I said, what? And I'm getting on Google, looking really quick, trying to figure out if these were actually true. Of course they are.
If Dan's saying it's all true, yeah.
There's a fire burning underneath that seat, right? Like, you just kind of have it getting hotter and hotter. Now, again, Harbaugh is a very solid coach. Is he going to keep those distractions out of the locker room? He should be able to do so. This is a really tough one. The look-ahead number was 6.5 to start the season, and I thought that seemed a little high. I was sitting at the K-State basketball game on Sunday when the college football lines came out, and I saw 3.5. I said 3.5. Oh boy, this seems a little cheap, but I do side here with the Buckeyes. I would like to think that they're going to have the best player on the field in Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. If their quarterback cannot turn the ball over, if he plays mistake-free football, I think they can win this game in the Big House. It is going to be absolutely electric. It's going to be an insane rivalry game, but slight lean here towards the Buckeyes.
Does it pain you a little bit knowing that you're backing Ryan Day after what we've seen his teams do?
Ryan and I have had some go-arounds over the years, right? As a favorite, though, as an underdog, I preferred to back him. Okay. He has had some scrappy teams before. It's kind of one of those play on, play against, but you got to pick your spots when you're backing some of these teams, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Texases of the world, USC, Florida State, all these ones with huge, massive fan bases. The bookmakers kind of bake that into the cake.
If you lead, I will follow, Kelly. You've been doing great with this, so I'm with you. I'll follow Ryan Day.
Well, let's
win some money.
Let's follow Kelly over to Starkville for the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving night. Kelly, you often like home underdogs. Is that the case in Ole Miss, Mississippi State this week?
I also like when coaches get fired to play on their team the following week. Now, I did make this game 9.5. 10 doesn't provide a lot of value. But not only did Mississippi State fire their head coach, they are also needing a W here to become bowl eligible. Now, let's see, depending on how well liked the previous coaches, depends on how well the players play. Let's use the Raiders, for example, in the NFL. They were so happy to see Josh McDaniels leave. Look how much, fire that team has now gotten. So I'm curious to see what we're going to see from Mississippi State. I will say one caveat here, and that is why I have not bet it yet. Some of the injuries on the Mississippi State side are a little asterisk towards it. We should know by tomorrow afternoon. But for this team to have some extra motivation, Ole Miss stumbled a couple times, right, this year, especially that loss at Georgia. Does this game mean more to the Bulldogs? Absolutely.
Florida State. The impact here for Florida, they want to go bowling. We'll find out. Florida State just lost their quarterback. 6.5 points, too steep to roll with the Seminoles?
Well, Graham Mertz is out for this one too. And so I think that's something that comes into play here that we need to kind of look at. And a lot of the overreaction is going to be Jordan Travis being out. How good are the prospective backups? Well, they're about 4 to 5 points dropped off from the starter. Well, that kind of puts these two on an even playing field. I thought this one was a little strange. I expected this line to be higher with Graham Mertz being out, but it's not, which kind of tells me the bookmakers think that his backup is going to be just fine. Billy Napier's got a lot to prove here. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is going to be absolutely rocking. These two teams hate each other. So the 6.5 looks very tasty to me as a home dog under a touchdown, right? I think if it was 7.5, a lot of people would be thinking FSU was absolutely going to roll. We remember a couple of weeks ago, well, not even, it's been like 7 weeks ago now, when I had Florida as a home underdog to Tennessee. Yeah, we don't get those opportunities very often, but we've got one here on Saturday.
Kelly, you said that you like teams where the coach just got fired to take those teams. I'm curious what you think about teams where there's a report that their coach is going to get fired, but may not get fired if he won a game. And, oh, by the way, that coach won that game, but we still don't know if he's going to keep his job. Of course, I'm talking about Chip Kelly at UCLA. They play Cal. What are we playing in that one?
Yeah, I love Cal. Whether Chip is there or not, I don't think it matters. This Cal team has been so scrappy for me, you guys, all season long. They have been awesome underdogs, especially on the road. They also have an opportunity to become bowl eligible here. 9.5 is the current line. It opened 10, so it's come down. So somebody agrees with me here. I like what I've seen from this Cal team. Now, not against subpar opponents, but against big name opponents. What do we see? They went into North Texas, just absolutely throttled that team to start the year, and then they started to falter. But they came back in big time situations, namely a couple weeks ago against USC. This team, I said, had a chance to go bowling when I gave them out to upset USC. They couldn't get it done. That was the Clay Travis Halloween party, if you guys remember. I was already crabby walking in the front door because they should have won that football game. But hey, UCLA has been absolutely atrocious under Chip Kelly against the spread. They cannot cover to save their lives. Couple of question marks too. Sam Jackson may be out for UCLA. Their quarterback is questionable, as well as Cal's quarterback being questionable. But I have heard that Sam Jackson will be a go against UCLA. Still waiting on a couple more things, but I really like Cal. I think they might be able to spring the upset here.
Give me the inside scoop. Kelly in Vegas with us here on Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick network. You said you like coaching changes. What about votes of confidence in saying the coach is going to return? Sam Pittman in Arkansas. Meanwhile, Missouri, I mean, they've been rolling. Even against good teams, really great teams, they're extremely competitive. Which way do you roll with the Sam Pittman returning next year type news week for the Razorbacks?
I've been against Mizzou all season long, and admittedly, I've been absolutely terrible betting against them, right? They beat my Kansas State Wildcats, 61-yard field goal, and then they went on a tear.
Yeah.
Things have kind of calmed down for them. Last week, I liked Florida. I said, hey, Florida's got a real shot to win this one. Unfortunately, the Gators could not get it done in Columbia for me. But this Mizzou team is getting a little too much love. Arkansas, as a scrappy home underdog. We played on them in the Swamp, if you guys remember a couple weeks ago. I like this team, and you're right. They do like Sam Pittman. That is why he gets to keep his job. Fan bases, I've heard mixed reviews coming out of Fayetteville. We'll leave it at that. And I don't blame people, right? When you have really high hopes and now you're not even going to a bowl game, it is frustrating from a fan perspective, but this is Arkansas's bowl game, and I expect them to put up a hell of a fight. I'm going to take the 7.5.
I'm betting that right now, as you say. The real question is, what does Jerry Jones think about Sam Pittman? That's the only alumni and booster that really matters for Arkansas. Maybe some mixed reviews on Shane Beamer this year at South Carolina. He's trying to get bowl eligible against Clemson. What are we playing in this one, Kelly?
This one is really tough, right? Clemson has been kind of quietly on a roll, right? They started off terrible against the spread. They had that loss to Duke. They had that really tight game where they probably should have beaten Florida State. And it's just kind of been a roller coaster ride, if you will, right? They lose, to Miami. NC State of all teams, 10-point favorites. They couldn't get it done. Then they turned right around and beat up on Notre Dame. This team has been so Jekyll and Hyde, but they've quietly put together 3 straight against okay opponents. And that's what South Carolina is. I really don't love South Carolina for the most part. Their style of play is rather frustrating. And we'll be nice and say that I do like Shane Beamer. I do think that he has some moments of coaching greatness. Let's just hope he doesn't have any of those coaching blunders that cost us this weekend. I like the 7 here in the rivalry game. I actually made this game 3.5. So either I have something significantly wrong with me or I need to reevaluate my power ratings.
Take the points. Mississippi State, Florida. Let's see. Cal, Arkansas, Ohio State, South Carolina. What are we doing in the NFL on Thursday? Final 30 seconds here, Kelly. Detroit, they've been awesome. Green Bay, no. But they did just win. Are we riding with the Lions?
Yeah, we are taking the Lions. I laid the 7.5 earlier today. Was kind of waiting to hear from some sources, make sure everybody's go. Now it's up to 8. Aaron Jones is out for the Packers. That was announced earlier. That does bode well for laying the points. I think the Lions in a teaser spot is also an excellent play. I would not be surprised to see Jared Goff coming out slinging and this one be like a 31-17 final. Shock the world. Lions are not the same old Lions.
Boat race.
Here we go.
Not what we would expect, for
I
sure.
want a Lions Super Bowl so bad. Just to see them there would be so much fun.
Kelly, thank you as always. They're very healthy, Kelly in Vegas.
Very healthy. Taking our vitamins, hydrated, ready to go, survivor. That's Kelly.
Check out the fade. Hey, thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, boys.
There's Kelly in Vegas.
You know who wouldn't survive a birthday weekend? Megan making money. She wouldn't have survived it. She'd be far worse off than Kelly in Vegas. There's no doubt about it. She would not have put forth that effort that we just saw.
Or us with them.
Oh, no. I've taken the day off.
The very latest headlines from the NFL, including Aaron Rodgers returning to practice, plus who's been ruled out for Thanksgiving Day. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
carjacking. We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. The Packers running back Aaron Jones, he's not playing on Thanksgiving Day. Packers headed to Detroit. When Kelly mentioned this, Chad, here's what I thought. I don't know, it's very random. It's clockwork here. It's interesting how the players, not all the players, I'm lumping everyone in, they want a narrative discussed about, oh, turf versus grass. When's the last time you heard anything about that with all the injuries we've had? It's been weeks, months. No one's keeping up with that anymore.
But now,
we were in September.
Yeah, but now there's like a player poll that's out that says that's the biggest issue in the NFL. I saw.
But they're not doing anything about it.
I'm gonna look this up, but it was like it's a very serious issue. And I was confused by that because I, too, had not heard anything.
Nothing.
Since early in the season on this. But I'm like, oh, this is a thing again?
So he has an MCL sprain is his issue. And I bring it up just because of the knee. But this happened last week on grass at Lambeau. So, again, I'm not specifically pointing to him, but he's just another and he's been hampered all season back and forth. It's been awful in the backfield for Green Bay based on his availability. But yeah, it's not a talking point anymore. And it's just, that's the problem really with not just the running backs, but period. If you want to change something in the league, you got to stay on it. And these, by and large, it's just like, well, guess we'll go out and play again tomorrow on the same turf, indoor practice facilities, like whatever.
They want to make that game check.
Of course. But if you do, like, don't make a big issue about it for 3 weeks and then, it just kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, it did go away pretty quick, and that was the hot button issue.
And there will be a report that has all the stats with it, whatever. But again, it really doesn't mean anything based on the hot air that is wasted on this. If the players aren't going to do anything about it,
don't you hate when you see
contract.
something and then immediately forget like where you were reading, where you saw that, and I'm now searching feverishly for it. It just went into my brain, and I'm like, which website did I go to daily? Did I see that? I'll find it. Find it.
Tonight, great hoops action tonight. I'll be locked in. You and Davey sold me last week. I'm back in tonight, and for good reason. Solid solid tip-offs with some of the top teams in the country, including Tennessee.
Yeah. Tennessee and Purdue, that's number 7 versus number 2. Purdue second nationally, Tennessee 7th. You got that game, and you've got number 1 Kansas taking on number 4 Marquette in another game. Great matchups. It's in Honolulu, the Maui Invitational. I love these because they're going to be all-out wars when these teams play.
Yeah.
Especially how physical some of these teams are. But it's all of the great intensity without the feeling that there are just these enormous stakes because it's college basketball in November, and it never feels like there's enormous stakes in these games. So it's all fun. I feel like for anyone watching the game, you don't feel like, oh, this is the end of the line for this team because they lost this game.
Yeah.
It just feels fun. It's hard to explain.
And it's not
what it's
Alabama,
like.
Chattanooga. You know, when you know your team's going to entertain you, but it's going to be for the opposite reason. You know?
Yeah, I found it, Hutton. The Athletic did a 2023 anonymous NFL player poll.
Okay.
And it says it's clear how NFL players feel about the ongoing turf versus grass debate within the league, with nearly 83% of players who responded in the Athletics poll saying that it's a real concern. That topic was among the many the Athletics beat writers surveyed 85 players about over the past month.
There's some new turf that some teams are using that I don't know. I think everything's
12.3 said it's overblown. The issue's overblown.
Okay.
12.3%.
And they're probably players who play on natural grass and primarily just that throughout their career.
Yeah, one player, again, all anonymous, said you wake up in the morning feeling 10 times better after you played on grass compared to the way you feel played on turf. Another player added, I've been vocal about it. I think our locker room is pretty unified on it. It sucks, and there's enough money to eliminate it, and it's time.
I think Washington jumps Florida State in the latest college football playoff rankings.
Yep.
And it's not because of any injury. I would have said this, Chad, prior to Jordan Travis's injury, just based on how the season was shaking out, and based on the comments made by members of the college football playoff committee. They were saying that Washington was very close with Florida State and how they had them ranked and how they compared them. Well, if you're comparing them and they're so close, Washington's win this past weekend over Oregon State would trump a win over North Alabama for Florida State, regardless of injury. But there's with no question that they can make this move now. Washington gets in based on the upcoming rankings that will be released, and they don't have to point to the fact that Jordan Travis got injured as to why they fell down. They can simply say, well, we've already stated it was so close, and Washington's win over Oregon State did it because they continue to survive and advance. But what if Florida State does that? So if the narrative is, well, Washington survives and advances, and we're basing this off of what happened this past week, and they're so close. If Florida State continues to do that, how can you not give the tip of the hat to an unbeaten team in the Power 5 with a one-loss team elsewhere? And it wouldn't necessarily have to be Washington.
No, Florida State deserves to be in if
I agree.
they go undefeated.
But you know they won't.
I don't care about Jordan Travis's injury status at all. Very clear about that.
You know how they roll with this, though.
It's about what they've accomplished, and I don't need to know the committee's projections for the games moving forward.
I agree with
They're not Vegas. They're not analysts. Their job is to look at results and tell us, hey, here were the best teams in the country based on the results of the games we have in front of us. And if Florida State goes undefeated, they should be one of the 4.
Yes.
And I've got, tell me if you're the exact same. Georgia 1.
Yes.
Ohio State 2. Washington 3. Florida State 4. Michigan 5.
I have Michigan in.
You got Michigan in?
Yeah. I've got Florida State 5.
So you're going to have Washington 4 or Michigan?
Washington at 4.
Okay.
But only because they haven't stated. I'm just going based on comments and perception, and I don't mind putting Washington ahead of Michigan. And I mean, you've had Washington well ahead of the pack here, or the group think that they're really good, and they are really good.
It's also knowing, like I can do that, knowing that Michigan will probably jump someone if they beat Ohio State.
Yes, but where so?
Well, they'll jump into Ohio State's spot.
What we haven't heard from the committee is Michigan and Florida State are very close. We've only heard that Florida State and Washington are. So that's why I've got Washington at 4.
Well, once again, a Big Ten team and a powerful program. It was Penn State's turn. They didn't come close to doing it. Maryland came closer to doing it this past weekend. There's a chance for someone to do the Lord's work here. If you've got a big problem with what Michigan's done, Ohio State, you're next man up. Ryan Day and your team, you got a chance to go and win it on the field and shut Michigan fans up and everyone else that's got that doesn't like Michigan right now. You got to do it on the field.
So this is crazy to think about, but if you were trying to also, and again, I'm not into this theory actually being valid, but we know the conspiracy theorists out there would say this: if Michigan's at 4, you have them at 4, I think, right?
I got them at 5.
If Michigan's at 4 and Washington's at 3, they would point to the fact that Michigan surrendered 24 points to Maryland. They had a defensive touchdown, 2 safeties. If not for that, the Wolverines could have lost the game. If they're at 4, or if they fall down a peg, well, think about the magnitude of Saturday's game. Because they fall in, one loss puts you at 6 or 7 probably, if you're at 4 to them then. And this is all hypothetical based on what's going to be a crazy weekend. I get it. But how far would Ohio State fall if they're at 2 and they lose to Michigan? 4? 5? And then we could still see both teams get in.
What's going to happen is, however you call it tonight, the winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game will be 1 or 2 in the country when it's over. I don't care where Michigan is tonight or Ohio State.
I think they'll be at 2. I think you think the same thing.
Winner will be at 2. Georgia will be 1. Winner of that game will be at 2.
Yeah.
And then if Washington and Florida State win, that's your 3 and 4.
Yes.
So then after that, the question becomes, does Ohio State or Michigan fall behind Oregon or Texas?
Oregon, Texas,
or a one-loss team there.
Alabama.
Or where do they fall? Alabama. In that pecking order, where do they go?
Oregon, Texas, Alabama. You mentioned Florida State, and that's where Michigan would fall in line if they lose, or Ohio State. But I don't know where Ohio State would fall because they were the number 1 team. They get jumped by Georgia. And then how far would one loss send them? I don't think that far. I think it would be, can you imagine Saban battling Ohio State for the
fourth spot,
the campaign to get in last minute?
That would
and
be
Florida
something.
State. Saban against Ohio State and Florida State for the right to get in.
Here's what I want
and
from
Texas.
Okay, and that may be the case.
I'm just, again, we're going to see losses.
What I want from ESPN, though, is equal time. Because what they're going to do is what they did last year and put Nick Saban on every show. Nick Saban's going to pop up on a Monday Night Football game at halftime pleading his case for Alabama.
Well,
make sure Ryan Day and anyone else that's also in the mix has a chance to come on your network and argue their case.
I think the reason for that is the posturing that you want Bama on the screen and not TCU. If you have Ohio State, if you have Texas, if you have Oregon, you're probably getting more equal time. And that's just I'm just trying to use common sense as to why you would give. They're going to give Saban the floor anyway, but you would have Ryan Day on, right?
No, I
you would
hope
have
they
Sarkisian.
do.
I don't know why you wouldn't, based on the brands and the eyeballs, based on the program.
Well, when you don't, it's
obvious.
It leads more into this thing that we all kind of know already, anyways. That it's the network and the broadcast partners running the show in a lot of cases.
And ESPN's
and they ultimately decide
playoff.
what happens.
Yeah.
Davey sent us this. If they still did BCS rankings, here's what the computer would have tonight. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4, Florida State 5, Oregon 6, Texas 7, Alabama 8.
The only difference with the AP poll is Missouri at 10 with the BCS.
How about Louisville with 1 loss? Louisville, before they won, they went to Miami and won this week. That's a pretty good win. Yeah, but going into that game, Hutton, they had the 97th weakest schedule in the country.
Wow.
I was blown away when I saw that. 97th?
I mean, you mentioned the 1 loss. I'm thinking about the how long did we go with a 1-win Louisville basketball team last year? Now I have the 1 loss Louisville football team.
I mean, crazy. Crazy.
How much would you pay for your favorite player of all time's uniform, jersey, kit, sweater, whatever you want to call it? Any sport?
I don't know. Did someone pay a lot?
Estimate if you want a Lionel Messi jersey, it's like $10 million.
Is it a famous one? Like, was it worn when he, cured cancer? What did he do when he wore
you can
the
have
jersey?
It's a collection of them, but no, I mean.
So there's multiple $10 million jerseys?
No. The collection would cost you $10 million.
A collection of them. Gotcha.
No way I'm doing this.
No. The only way, if I were a multimillionaire, bordering on billionaire, then I would have like rooms of my mansion devoted to sports memorabilia, and I'd pay money for these things.
Yeah.
Hutton, I've said this before, and I'm sure people mock me for it. I have a hard time paying for sports stuff. I just do. It's the jobs that we've had for a while. I can't tell you the last time I paid for a ticket to anything. I either have a press pass or I get tickets handed to me.
It's ridiculous.
That's how I go to games.
Ridiculous.
Or I don't go. Or I watch them on TV.
Davey, what are you paying for a Duke basketball uniform?
Your Christian Laettner jersey.
Christian Laettner Final Four. Again, it all comes back to if I had the money, it would definitely be up there. Like right now, I would probably be willing to go like 2,000. That's just where I'm at. Like from a financial standpoint, yeah. I mean,
or like Chris Duhon.
I would love it if they're like, we'll start the bidding at $100,000, and Davey just raises his and he says, I'll give you 2,000.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith, please.
I'd like to start for 2,000.
As high as we're going. But
do you have a Cherokee Parks practice jersey that I can have for $1,000?
I want a collection of all three Plumlee practice jerseys.
There you go. Yeah, 10 mil. 10 mil.
Do you have a Thomas? Was it Thomas Davis? Was that the guy on the team with Grant Hill? Do you have a Thomas Davis jersey?
What's Daniel Ewing up to? Back at it tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern. How am I with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick
for
Network?
Elton Brand's jockstrap.